Okay, hi everyone, and welcome to the Keshe Plasma Reactor group once again. Tuesday night in the Pacific coast of Canada. It's already Wednesday in many parts of the world, including Europe. And it is Tuesday, August 8th today. In my part of the world, it's 08 of 8th month, 08 of 17, which adds up to 8, so it's kind of 888 today. Alright, whatever that means. So let's get into it here and see what we have lined up for today. Okay, does anybody have anything they'd like to bring up or show or tell? I always lean on Lee to start things off, and he's gracious enough to have something on his screen, which I'm about to put up. I don't know, maybe we're just getting a picture of his bathrobe here. It's kind of hard to tell. What do we got here, Lee? What's going on today?
There we go.
Ah.
Just had to switch cameras.
Oh, okay.
Look what you got me wasting my time on these days.
Yeah, well, look what I have just briefly here. Let me show you. I've got a bunch of them lined up here. I got little Canadian ones with Canadian flag on them, and I've got my doorknob one here all set up ready to go with its reactors going around there. I've got another one and another one. My fishing bobber one for Canada. I'll show them later, but yeah, it's a bad habit. So show me what you've got there. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I couldn't help myself.
Inspired by Rick Crammon and the Plasma Reactor group, I got the ultimate, super fantastic Keshe fidget spinner.
Wow! Holy cow! What have you done? Oh my God, Lee! Wow! How many have you got in that top thing there? It's like 18 or something?
Yeah, I got 18 up there.
Wow.
So
so you went super spinner, like if 3's good, then 6 times as many should be about right, eh?
Well, we were supposed to have 18 balls on that spaceship formation.
Yeah.
So I got my 18 balls.
So, okay, well, tell us some more of the details about that.
Okay. You want to pin me?
Oh, I have you on mine, but it's not spotlighted for everyone else. There we go.
See if this other camera will show anything more details. And so originally I was going to use a bicycle hub to do this this thing with a piece of plywood on the top with the balls around it, and then on the axle here I was going to put a piece of 1/4-inch plywood for the base, probably this base here, and then another supporting thing here to somehow to hold the top ball. But then I got to thinking that we're probably trying to create some free plasma in this thing, and if I have something solid in the middle, that's where the free plasma is supposed to be. So I decided to go with a 1/2-inch copper tube in there. There we go, right there. So this is just a temporary tube. The permanent one here is going to be nano coated on the inside to try and hold the plasma in. So yeah, I got 5/8 bearings. So first I bought some cheapy bearings. They were about $2.50 a piece, but they were they wiggle on the copper pipe, and when you spin them, the seal on there rubs the center shaft, and they weren't very good. So I went out and got some quality bearings for it. So down on the way down there, there's a bearing right at the base there with a stop collar on it to hold the shaft up. So that's the main spinning one, and then there's a bearing in this which solid base here, and then there's a bearing at the bottom where this pulley is, and then there's another bearing at the top in there for the spinner. And as it spins really good and easy. And then I got a bearing at the top again, just because the shaft spins for the top ball. So down the bottom here, we're going to have a motor spinning the bottom there, but for some reason the elastic band keeps popping off the motor. That's the motor in the back here, actually. That pulley there comes off the pulley. So that'll spin the top ball. And then this other motor here, it spins all three of the other balls. I just got one motor on the three balls. Okay, and what I've got for supporting those balls is there's a bearing on the top here that the 3/4 plywood's only drilled a 1/2 inch down the thickness of the bearing. And then there's 3 screws on top, holds the bearing in solid onto the, and then the pipe goes up through the bearing. So I got these they're basically the 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch threaded fitting. You use them sort of on top of hot water tanks, where you got the 3/4 pipe coming out the top of the hot water tank and then into 1/2 inch copper. So one of these is soldered on the bottom. I'm using it as a pulley, and there's a little spacer in there, and then there's the bearing, and then there's one on top. And these things spin real nice and true. And then the big wide fitting on top, you can really get the ball glued on there nice and centered. So it makes it spin nice and centered, not too much wobble. These top ones, they're just screwed to the copper pipe with 2 screws. The copper pipe won't fit inside these bearings. It's just a little too tight. So you take some emery cloth to it and sand it down, and then you get a nice tight fit. You see, there's no wobble or anything to it. Yeah, that's right. And the copper tube's just a couple of thousandths over the oversize. So I put it in my wood lathe and then just sand it down. But you could sand it down in a drill press or whatever, or rig up something in electric drill. The electric drill might actually, you'd have to have a big drill to get 5/8 in the chuck, but anyway, these things make really nice. They're solid, and I was quite impressed how solid they were and how nice they spin. Right now I just got one bearing in it. So that's right. But if it was vibrating quite a bit and stuff, you could put a second bearing below on the shaft so that it isn't twisting the bearing, in the single bearing. But I'll have to experiment with that to make sure that its single bearing will work. Yeah, well, it's a long. Oh, for on these small balls, yeah, I suppose. Right now, I just got two holes drilled in the top. One I put the syringe in, and then when it fills up, it squirts out the other hole. That way, I know it's filled up. And then I'll just put a bit of hot glue on it. So, but these won't be the final balls for this machine because they're just single balls. I'll probably have to use a small acrylic ball with one of these smaller 3/4 inch balls inside it to give me the double ball arrangement, because that's all I got to use for a double ball. I could use my fiberglass balls eventually, but I think for the first go around I'll use acrylic balls. So, but these bearings for these things, they're out of these fidget spinners. I just bought 5 of these fidget spinners and then cut the plastic off and use the bearing. So that's a real cheap bearing. These guys, some of them, they rattle around it quite a bit.
Yeah, I think they use skateboard bearings in them. Just probably the ones that were throwaways from the factory or something.
Well, I think a skateboard bearing is bigger than this, but these are the poorest quality bearings around a bit.
Probably, yeah. Some of them were dinged up pretty bad on the ones I saw. But yeah, okay, so.
But if you wanna get the ball, like right now, with just the motor on it, it'll just spin this thing. I just brought it up from the basement just before the meeting, and I didn't get a chance to hook up the power supply up here, but I'd show you spinning. But it spins nice and easy with those bearings on it, and it'll keep spinning there for a long time. Yep. And then if you want to spin the balls too, you can sort of flick them with your finger.
Yeah.
Or I got this rubber flicker over here.
A rubber flicker.
So as the motor's spinning it, that little rubber finger will spin the balls to get the thing agitated. So.
Wow. Yeah, how simple, eh?
So my only problem now is I got no GANs to put in them. I haven't made any hydrogen, deuterium, and tritium GANs yet.
Right.
So right now it's just the Keshe fidget spinner.
Yeah. Yeah, indeed. It's the plasma researcher's fidget spinner. Interesting, though. Nice. So it runs for about 30 seconds or so, maybe, with a good spin there.
Yeah, something like that. It's got quite a bit of weight with the bolts and the. So.
Yeah. Fair amount of air resistance. I wonder when those balls rotate around, or when they revolve like that, do they actually rotate each of them as well? Do they partially rotate when they're going around, or they just lock into one place?
No, they seem to lock into one place. So that's why you'd have to put the little flicker on there to give them a kick to rotate. But I don't know whether they'd end up. I mean, all these balls eventually are supposed to end up rotating on their own with no motors, but
right.
We'll still see. We'll see about that. So.
Wow, that's pretty amazing that you kind of put this all together in the last few days or whatever. I guess you've been a bit busy with that. Holy cow.
That's right.
And those other smaller balls, what are they similar to the 3 on the bottom? They have one bearing and a tube that goes through, or they just got a bolt that goes through?
No, it's just an M8 bolt with some washers on the bottom. I was going to make some pulleys on here and try and come up with some way to get a motor to spin them, but that was too difficult, and plus my washers were interfering with each other. So I just went the other route here just to flick them.
Right. You could
but
put
yeah, they're just hot glued to the nut on top of the bolt here.
I see. Okay. Yeah.
So hopefully that'll hold.
So you could put a belt around most of them and just attach the belt to something solid, and it would rotate them as it goes around as well.
That was plan A, but then I was using the washers to make a pulley, but the fender washers were too big. They were rubbing each other. So I would have had to make the diameter of that circle bigger to make that idea work. So
possibly, yeah.
That might come on version 2. If this one shows some promise, we'll try and improve on it.
Yeah. Well, interesting. Any comments from anybody on that arrangement? Now's your chance to get your question into Lee. No takers? Going once, going twice. Oops, I guess not. Okay, just get this up on the live stream just a second here. There we go. Victor says it seems safe to fly. And
hopefully.
Chandler says beautiful mechanical construction. Shandor says it would be practical to keep some free space in the center, like you were saying with the tube and whatnot. Yeah.
I mean, it'd probably be better to have a larger pipe in the middle instead of just the 1/2 inch. But then you're getting into more expensive bearings.
And could there be other things that you could take away that would, there's some wood and other things covering the tube now? Can some of that be removed, or is it all that necessary for suspending
well,
things,
I could put the 2 bearings for the spinning wheel closer together. And then that would take some wood. Right now I got a bearing, I don't know, they're about 3 inches apart on this thing.
Right, I see.
I could take a couple of chunks of wood off the top. I mean, I could cut some holes in this wood here to free up some space. I got some holes cut in this wood.
Oh, I see.
So there's only 4 spokes in there, and this piece of plastic on top, I sort of just cut it out for. I mean, it could be cut down smaller. It doesn't need to be the 3 inches wide on those legs. But yeah, it's a little difficult to keep the center clear.
Yeah, right. I'm thinking maybe there's a lot of heavy metal too with the balls that are rotating and so on. But,
yeah, for these small balls, what you could do is just to glue them to the bearing. But the thing is, then you couldn't have any way to turn them. Okay, they would be just sitting on the bearing. They'd have to turn on.
Couldn't you glue them just to the inner part of the bearing?
Yeah, that's what you do. But then you couldn't flick them.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
The bolt is actually a pulley. Or that was the original plan, was to make that a pulley below that you could.
What if you had a copper tube going through the bearing holding the ball? And then that could be your core in a way, or at least it could be nano-coated nicely. But you won't find a copper tube that'll go through those bearings too easily, probably.
Yeah, not likely. It's 8 millimeter, so
yeah,
a quarter is too small.
Yep, and 3/8 is too big, so, and they don't make the tubing proper. But yeah, nice, very nice. So you say, are you going to start making some GANs then?
I got to start making some GANs, yeah.
GANs. that's something I need to get into as well here too. It seems like it's time now to get back into making ganses.
So I've been chewing up PET plastic to make hydrogen GANs. I think the instructions for the hydrogen GANs said to use the Coke bottle bottoms and the necks, so I don't know why you would just use that instead of the whole Coke bottle.
Well, the necks were special. We went through that one time. The necks have, they're not blown out and thinned out and extruded as much as the rest of the bottle, because in the manufacturing process they actually hold the neck of the bottle and blow out the rest of it. And when it blows out, it basically it's sort of like stressing the plastic. It changes the molecular structure, same as work hardening copper or some other metal. By bending it a bunch of times or stretching it, it makes it harder and thinner. And so it's a different structure because of that hardness. The neck is a different structure, so the neck, when it's ground up, has the right stuff that the caustic works on it differently and so on.
Okay, because I've been grinding up anything that's type 1 plastic, PET plastic, the chips, but to get bottle bottoms and bottle necks, it would take me a year and a half to get enough to make any GANs, because I don't use those Coke that much. So.
And what's your procedure there with when you grind it up and then do what with it?
Well, right now I've just been grinding it up in a blender, and I got a pie box full of chips at the moment. But then the next step is to actually try and make some GANs.
And do you have a procedure yet figured out for that? Or there's a question here: how would you make your H1, H2, H3? Any new method you came up with, Valerie?
I got no new method. It's just what other people have been saying. With you get a Coke bottle with the chips in the bottom. You got a tube out of the top of the bottle over to the salt container.
Been an echo.
And then you got a carbon rod into the Coke bottle as well. The Coke bottle goes into a bigger container which has salt water in it with a second carbon rod, and you run power through the 2 carbon rods, and then you put hot caustic crystals and add hot water to the Coke bottle to kick it off, I guess. And you collect the hydrogen coming out of the top and run it through the salt water in the other container. And that's supposed to work, but I haven't tried it yet, so I don't know.
Okay.
It's supposed to give you a yellowish GANs for hydrogen GANs. And in the big salt container, you get a black GANs, which is probably carbon GANs. So.
Okay, then that gives you the basic hydrogen. Is that correct? It's not the tritium or deuterium.
That's just straight hydrogen.
Right. And then there's the H2 or D2, depending on what you call it.
H2, you just use your CH3 setup and run power through the 2 plates. That gives you a black GANs, which is supposed to be deuterium. And I've made black GANs before doing that way, but I didn't know what I was getting, so I thought it was carbon GANs. So that's fairly easy to do. And my first try at tritium didn't work, so I haven't tried it again. So.
All right. Any other comments or questions about that? Anybody else have some other ideas? Got a quiet crowd here tonight. All right, so be it. We'll have to keep them entertained, Lee. You got any more aces in your pocket?
I was watching an interesting video on YouTube there a couple hours ago, and had all kinds of images with toroidal fields and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. And what did you find interesting about it, or what was the idea there?
Well, it was a video from Michael Tellinger, and well, let me show you some of the pictures I captured. If I can get my screen back up. I can find the right. Do you see any pictures on that? Right.
Yep. Okay. And what's this from? Yeah, these are all copyright images and so on from a website, right?
That's probably true. I just took them off the video, so I guess I shouldn't be showing those.
Yeah, unless we need to tell people where they're from and all the things about it, just educational wise. But yeah, I don't tend to like to show copyrighted images because somebody else try to hit me with it. But yeah, it looks nice. So the toroid images are so nice to show.
But he had a whole bunch of them, and they sort of gives you ideas to visualize different types of toroids. He had about 6 or 7 different types of toroids. Now he wasn't talking. He was talking about magnetic fields and sound waves and stuff. It wasn't into the Keshe stuff with magnetic fields and gravitational fields.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not what we're being taught, but the visualization on those toroids was pretty good. I don't think I can put a URL in the chat, can I?
Yep. Yeah, you should be able to. I can put it on the live stream as well.
Okay, that's the URL for that video. In that video, he's first. It's in the second hour of that video that he gets into all the different toroids, all the pictures of the toroids and stuff.
Did you push
about
the return button there? I don't see the link coming up.
I did.
Can anybody else see? I see Jay put a link in here. I don't see yours.
Oh, I guess it just went to Space Stream for something. From me.
Okay, right. Stream. You need to click on everyone for it to come through.
Okay. Well, let's try again. How's that?
There we go. That came through.
Okay.
And I'll post it on the live stream. All right, so people can have a look at that there on their, so get an idea what you're talking about. Yeah, I wish we could liberally show those kind of images, but we have to check on the people with the copyrights first and get permission and that kind of thing, which might be kind of hard to do from some people.
Yeah. Anyway, it would be a good idea. Gives you a good visualization. Some of those, what a toroid field looks like and stuff like that, and so that when you're doing these experiments, you can see what a toroid looks like. For instance, on our center thing going around here, if you had made it with some sort of tubes of Gantz going in a toroid around it, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and then spin it, you know, what would that do? Or instead of having the balls have just one circular tube of Gantz or something, or maybe you got to have two toroids, one for gravitational, one magnetical sort of toroid of tubes around it for the Gantz, or maybe just nano-coated wires in the toroid around it and spin that. You know, there's a few things you could do with this spinning fidget.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Fidget spinner.
So a question comes up, like we have the toroid as a shape, we know what that looks like, but we also have a sphere as a shape, and we know what that looks like. So how is it that we have a sphere, but yet it has a toroid field involved with it? And why is it that we talk about, you know, maglev fields and we think of it in terms of a toroid or different shapes like that, but yet all the shapes we see in the universe seem to be spheres?
Well, if you have a sphere, and if you were to poke the two tops and bottoms on the sphere into a lot more like a donut shape, a sphere with a donut, you got a spherical toroid basically, you know. And you think of the Earth as a sphere, but all the magnetic lines of force around the Earth for the, you know, our magnetic field, that's a toroid, even though the Earth itself is a sphere. So
well, that's what I'm saying. How come we don't have big dimples on the North Pole and South Pole where it goes into the center of the Earth, kind of? Well, some people say there are, but you know, generally we don't see a big big belly button on the North Pole where everything gets sucked in, kind of.
Well, why would there be that? I mean, the Earth itself is in matter state. We're talking about.
Well, that's the thing, you know, I guess.
We're talking toroid, we're talking fields.
Well, that's the that's the big difference.
When you look at the fields, you've got the dimple in the fields, probably, or close to it. And on that video, there's some pictures of like the toroids around Earth and stuff, and he's actually saying there's a double toroid around it with a different plane in the middle, kind of thing too, which was kind of interesting. The way he was looking at it. So who knows? And you know, he said the whole galaxy has got a toroidal field around it. You know, saying there's a loop toroid sort of on the top of the you know, the disk of the plane of the disk where all the solar systems are, and then there's another toroid on the bottom. He's got some kind of a double toroid on there, and maybe is that the truth? Is that what it really is? Or, you know, we've always thought of it as just one toroid right around the middle. So, you know, there's not, you know, there's some people look at it a little bit different, and maybe these different ideas will give us an idea of to visualize these fields, since we can't really measure them yet.
Yeah, that's the thing. If we were to look at a human being's fields, and if we were just seeing the fields and not the physicality, what would that look like? Would it be more toroidal, or would it look like the same general shape as a human, but just in, you know, fields? Does anybody remember what that looks like from some past experience? or past life experience, maybe. Space Dream says, I think if we will make the double toroid, then this could be the UFO. Well, that could be. That might be the secret, is to counter rotating toroids. Just the right angle between them to...
this creation here is quite complex. You got basically some kind of a toroid around each ball, and then they combine to make bigger toroids, and who knows what you end up with this thing.
Well, that's it, and you know, so we have to try to visualize. That's why I was asking about. You know, I look at it as what can we remove to make it as close as possible to the archetype fields, rather than getting the physicality stuff involved with it. And it's hard, because to get things rotating, then, you know, it seems we need bearings, or, you know, it seems that way at least. And
yeah, to get it over, if you wanted it really opened up in the center, you'd have to have some kind of bearings on the outside edge of this thing, and no shaft in the center.
It could be like a Lazy Susan type bearings. That could work. I've seen some.
Well, you probably got to get a double roller going on here somehow, in about 3 places or something, or maybe probably more than that. But and then you know, for the top ball, you'd have to turn that upside down with the motor on top, and or something. You know, it would get more complex for sure.
It's more complex, yes. This is the issue.
So, you know, when you spin your balls, you know, in your video, you see the plasma field going down the center of that void, eh? It's a very narrow void shape, okay? So is that what we're going to get with this whole thing, and it's going to go down the center of my pipe there? You know,
well,
all this is matter state. Do the fields go right through all this matter state stuff? I don't know. Or does matter state affect the fields? You know?
Well, there's the saying that we always used to go with in the early days of building the reactors, which was, if the plasma touches the physicality walls of the reactor, then it instantly dissipates the plasma. Or if it's a really strong plasma, it'll instantly dissipate the wall of the reactor. But something's got to give. So the idea was, Mr. Keshe always would teach us to make sure that the plasma doesn't touch the walls of the reactor. And that was the reason for the nano coating on the inside originally, is to... it acts as repels the magnetic gravitational field and keeps it inside, is the idea.
Yeah, there was one point we were nano coating everything in the construction. Lately we haven't been, so I don't know whether there's been a change of thought on that or not. Like in those, when he was a year ago, when he was talking about building plastic tubes to hold our things together, he nano coated the inside of the tube and put the plastic chips in there, and then nano coated the chips, and then put the CH3 GaNs inside the tube. But the outside of the tube wasn't nano coated; it was just the inside. So that's sort of why I'm just nano coating the inside of my copper pipe in the middle there. Is to keep the plasma inside the tube, and I wasn't too worried about stuff on the outside. But whether I'm right or wrong, I'm not sure.
I remember something came up about that recently. Like you were saying, it wasn't necessary to nano coat the outside, just the inside, or vice versa, depending if you wanted to let stuff out or trying to keep stuff in, I guess. So it's a good question about what you know, is for example, is there a field that's generated that essentially would squirt out of the tube? In effect, it would be a narrow, pointy kind of field that would, when it released, it would release through the nano-coated copper tube and come squirting out if it was not contained. Or is it, you know, create more of a larger field in a sphere around the whole unit? I don't know.
You know, instead of using the metal rods in here, maybe I should be using plastic pipes instead of the plywood. Maybe I should be using plastic sheets, you know, or something.
Right, there is that idea. That would be preferential, I think. I've got a unit that I think it got delivered today to the courier. I have to pick it up, or they didn't deliver it to me today. They're supposed to. But I got a unit ordered from Arizona to install in another facility, and I'm looking forward to that, to see how it's put together and see if there's room for improvement or for playing around with it, changing the different loadings of the reactors and so on. It's not the 18 ball one in the middle, it's just the 4 reactor Starship configuration as seen on the website. Maybe you could show that. Get that lined up. There it is. Okay, let me just put that on the screen here. Get zoomed in here. Okay, this is the Keshe Foundation store, and this is the Star Formation Dynamic Reactor Kit. Includes 4 polycarbonate outer core reactors, 4 acrylic inner core reactors, 4 motors and attachment hardware, 1 controller, and the wire harness, a wall adapter, and 3 acrylic plates, and 3 plastic threaded rods, and non-metallic mounting hardware. So you can see with the image here. Just zero in on that for the live stream. Pretty basic and simple, but still it requires the motors and wiring and so on as metal parts in it. But other than that, it seems like we're mostly looking at plastic, I guess. Okay. Do you want to go back to you there, Lee? Do you still have something to show there, or?
I'm just hooking up my power supply.
Oh,
We'll
okay.
spin this thing with a motor.
All right. It's exciting. Let me just get that lined up here. Ooh, we hear some action there.
Well, the main one's going. Slows it down a bit when you try and flick them.
No doubt. It's funny, your camera starts wobbling, kind of going weird. Is it on the same table or something, or is it?
Yeah, it is. It's just
Oh
got
yeah.
a wee tripod
Okay.
on that other camera.
Yeah, yeah. I thought it was being affected by the fields, but it's a vibration effect. Whoa, everything's whipping along there now.
That's for these guys spinning.
Yeah.
I just got wooden pulleys on there and the
Yeah.
elastic band.
Yeah.
I don't know how long they'll hold up, but
Yeah, in my experience, no more than an hour or so, but often just minutes. Yeah.
so one flaw in this design.
Yes, you have to keep a bag of elastic bands.
Yeah, I got a few spares around the center pipe. You got to take it apart to get a new band on, which isn't good.
Yeah, that's the problem. Yeah, my design was different. I could actually replace the elastic band without taking it all apart.
And then the elastic band comes off the pulley. That's why the top one's slowed down.
Oops.
Having a hard time keeping them on these wooden pulleys. So this design,
It's not quite ready for space travel yet.
Not yet. I was
There's
having
an
some
asteroid coming in, Captain. Just a minute, I'm getting the elastic band back on.
I was having so much trouble with the direct drive ones that that's why I decided to go with the elastic bands on this one.
And it can be quieter too when it's dialed in right.
Yeah, it's a lot quieter. And maybe the way to go is with some gears or whatever, just plastic gears or something. Because these motors I'm using, they're out of drills and stuff, and they've got a gear on it already.
Yeah.
So it's a possibility I could find a way to.
If they're really precise, then you might be able to keep them quiet, but otherwise it's usually got some sort of wow to it.
But I can never get the direct drive motor to the shaft connection right, and that always used to give me trouble. So
well, there we go.
Right now the one for the center shaft that keeps coming off the pulley on the motor, so I gotta change something, change the angle of the motor or something to get it to run true.
That's what I did with mine. I had a single bolt for the motor, so I could change the angle of it easily and get that centered. I didn't even need a flange on the pulley because just by changing the angle of the motor, you could get the belt to run in the center of the pulley.
Well, I made some wooden pulleys and just sort of press fit them onto the motors here, so the pulleys are about say the inch diameter on the motor, and about 2-inch diameter, say, on the shaft or something, and I was hoping it would be less fatigue on the elastic band that way. I know when I had real small pulleys and using O-rings, they'd last about 12 hours or 24 hours, and then they'd fatigue and break.
Yeah. Yeah, O-rings generally work pretty good. There's different sizes, of course, and
Yeah,
different
but
qualities.
but I think you have to have bigger diameter pulleys when you're using the O-rings, so otherwise they fatigue too quick.
Yeah, yeah.
But,
or smaller diameter O-rings also work if they, in that case. Or thickness, rather. Seems pretty happy running there now. We don't hear it. I guess the microphone is more or less cutting out the sound. Now we hear it, yeah. Oh, it's pretty loud, actually.
it's nowhere near as loud as the last one I made.
Yeah. That's humming along pretty fast there, actually, the main platform there. How fast do you think it's going? Like,
I don't know. I'd have
like maybe 1,000 RPM or more.
I'd have to get some reflector tape on there and to make my RPM meter work. I'll get back to you on that one, Rick, because I gotta hot glue the reflector on.
Yeah, it's hard.
That'll take
to
a while
do
to warm up.
Yeah. Jay says, "Why doesn't it lift off the ground now?"
There's no Gans in the balls.
Okay, it's logical.
There, that elastic band came off the pulley again. It needs some fine tuning.
Yeah, well, that's always the case with a new creation.
Down below, I got some rubber band, and I got a bunch of rubber chips on the on the plywood below, so that's not gonna last too long.
That's the indicator, all right.
Anyway,
that's where
it's not ready for production yet.
Not quite ready for production. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for showing it, though, Lee. It's inspiring, and it's shows the layout basically as we've been shown it, in its geometric configuration.
Well, hopefully, give somebody some ideas.
Yep. Yep. And once you load it up, who knows what could happen then? We shall see. Okay, anything else about that, Lee, or?
No, unless someone's got some questions.
Crowd's pretty quiet here, so I don't know. Anybody have any questions? Let's have a look at the live stream chat. Not really, nope. Let's see. Alright, thank you, Lee. Now, Guy asks, how do you fill the balls? I think Guy might have missed the two holes in the balls that you show.
Yeah, I've got a syringe somewhere here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's got a real fine tip on it. You can just stick it up to the hole in the ball and squirt it in. And then when you got these colored balls, you can't see the level in it. So that's why I put the 2 holes in. So when it squirts out the second hole, then I know it's full.
Mm-hmm.
So
I've had trouble trying to seal ping pong balls with hot glue because when the hot glue hits the water or hits the moisture, it'll create steam and make little bubbles. How do you get away with that?
Yeah, well, you hot glue them first and you set them aside, and then some of them, like you say, will have a bubble come up, and you'll still have the hole in the center. So then you got to do it again.
Okay.
That's basically what I've been doing.
Yeah,
So,
a little steam bubble will form.
Yeah.
All right, great. Thank you very much, Lee. That's great. Put my video back on. Well, it's good to know that the little spinners can be inspiring to others. We showed this kind of idea last week. I put 3 balls on one of these spinner doodads, and I've been working with this to try to make it as economical and in terms of parts, not too many parts, but still have the feature of being able to insert different fluids inside these balls. So I've got removable screws on the bottom here. Should have a bit better light here. Movable screws on the bottom. 3, 1, 2, 3, and a little dimpled washer on there, and that goes right into the bottom of these spheres. What it is spheres look like this. They have a metal bottom piece that has a hole in it. The hole is threaded, and normally there's a where is it? You know, I don't have one handy right now, but there's a little screw cap that goes in that has a hole in it, so you could actually mount it on a piece of thread or some kind of necklace material, and the little hole goes through your thread, and you can have it suspended. So the idea in this is I take out, in this arrangement, I take off the plug entirely, and I found a little oops, there goes one of my balls. I found a little 3mm screw which goes right into the bottom of the arrangement here. So that's what holds these ones inside of here. And it works out that if you put an O-ring on the neck of these little bulbs, then the O-ring sits down in here. I don't know if yeah, you should be able to see it there. See the O-ring on between the globe and the bearing, and that helps to seat it. And by the time you screw in the other part, it more or less centers these little globes, so that, especially when it's upside down, they actually spin pretty good. Or this this way. They don't spin all that great this way. You see that one goes. And so the idea there is you can actually just spin this in your hands. You have a little configuration like so. It'll spin for up to 2.5 minutes for this arrangement, which is not too bad. Now the cool thing about it is once you have this basic 3 sphere arrangement made, I'm just going to mute your audio there, Lee, because it's kind of noisy. There we go. Once you have these 3 spheres mounted, then you have an option where you can mount other stuff to it. Let me show you here what I mean. Okay, so for example, we have this little spinner. Normally you'd spin it like that. So I've got this nice brass sphere here. It's actually hollow inside, and you can see how this could be mounted on here. This could be nano coated, all ready to go. So it could be a nano coated sphere with your other GAN spheres rotating around it. You could have GANs on the inside of this brass nano coated sphere as well. So that's kind of a cool arrangement. Or instead of the brass, you could have an optional, get a nice little glass sphere like this. Just get that over there a bit. Let's zero in a bit more. Hang on a second here. Get my camera doodad up here. There we go. Okay, so I got this glass sphere here, and this actually had strangely enough, a ring on it, so you could actually put it on your finger as a glass. I guess you'd wear it on your finger. I'm not sure why. I took the finger part off, and so now this has a nice little screw-in top to it, the metal rim, and this little piece here which screws in. So this makes a nice container for different kinds of GANs, and once that's filled with the GANs of your preference, then that can sit as well on this spinner. Makes a really clean looking, really spiffy looking outfit here, and we can just give that a spin with the globe on there. And you can imagine the different combinations that could be used with this very simple apparatus. And who knows, it might be enough to get something jump started and actually create some fields. Now one of the downsides of these units is this unit in particular is aluminum, so it's a metal all around here and so on. Many of these units though are not metal. For example, this one here is a plastic. And it has, instead of bearings on the outside, just a simple hole, tapered hole. So I thought, well, it's a good place for these little brass beads that are partially nano-coated. They could be fully nano-coated and set in there. So it's surrounded with plastic primarily, with a metal ring around each one of these globes. They could even be set up so they rotate. There's a hole in each end, and you could have a pin that goes through and allows it to rotate on the spot. But for now, I've got another nano-coated brass ball, a little bigger one. This one's fully nano-coated. And you can see just in the middle, it just looks kind of, it just looks like it's, look at it, looks like it's actually flying now, doesn't it? It's levitating. Interesting, see? Nothing underneath. But it just has a nice look. I like the dark look. This is the sort of the Darth Vader spinner look. And now we have, of course, the all Canadian spinner. I just found this one today. And I'll get that rigged up. You can see how it'll look really good with primarily just the CO2 GANs. Nice white CO2 GANs in there. And some kind of central sphere. It could be something like that. Or what I thought would be really fun is something else I found yesterday. I just can't help but pick up toys when I'm out. It's, you know, for $1.25. It's worth it. What I picked up was these are bobbers. They're floats for fishing, and you get 8 of them for $1.25 at the dollar store. But what's interesting, other than the fact that you could have one inside of the next, inside of the next, inside of the next, which is pretty cool. But their internal parts can be taken apart to make them actually useful. You could have a septa seal in the top here. Will fit just about perfectly where this bobber part is in there now. And you can see how it just has the right look for the all Canadian unit here. You can sort of imagine with the other spheres in there, if I was to just kind of drop these in. And bingo, we've got an all Canadian example of the GANs rotating 4-reactor core configuration. In this case with a fishing bobber in the middle. Why not? So I mean, the possibilities are relatively endless with this game. Of course, you could have the 3 different GANSes, the CH3 GANs, and the CO2, and the copper oxide. Those are the 3 main ones, which we see here. Of course, say with a clear sphere, then that's kind of a, whoops, too many RPMs for not having them set in there. But you get the idea. I've even got a little star-shaped one of these that might be useful. Of course, there's also I can use a this is a ping pong ball, but this is a little different. Whoops. It's this is a glow-in-the-dark ball. If you hold it up to the light and then hold it in the dark, don't think we can do it here too easily, but you get the idea. It glows in the dark, and so you can see that that could be part of a reactor combo. Maybe it would start glowing if it got the correct fields happening inside the globe. It makes sense. Or maybe it would start actually reacting with the glow-in-the-dark material inside the globe. And I've got a regular GANs ball here, of course. that could also, you can also set that right in the middle. Different configurations as desired. So that's about it. That's something I've been playing with, and I hope to offer this as a product for experimenters. Actually, it's kind of a whimsical, you could say, but it's also the way I see it, it is actually practical as well. And there's another feature that I'm working on with this arrangement, which is similar to what Lee was showing with the elastic band. Missing some parts here. Where's my... Oh, it's back in the shop on the other end. Well, I can't show it right now, but basically it's the same idea as Lee had with an elastic band that'll go around all three of these. It fits in a perfect groove there with the glass part of the globe. And so basically with a band around, then all three of these rotate together. And if I had a shaft coming off this central place here, some kind of shaft, you can actually wrap the band around it, and when this thing gets rotated, then it'll actually rotate the little globes at the same time, so they can be rotating as well as revolving. But that takes up a lot of energy from the unit, and the bearings are rotating, and it won't spin anywhere near as long. So whether that's a feature or a bug, I'm not sure yet. But it is possible to get all three of these globes rotating, and maybe it would be enough just to get it jump started, and after it got jump started, maybe it'd be enough to keep it rotating on its own with the correct configuration. So that would be the ultimate goal as a demonstration piece to get to, would be some sort of self-rotating arrangement, basically. Or even if it lit up, say that bulb lit up as a little light bulb. Maybe you could have a light bulb that you simply flick to rotate. If it had heavier weights on it, you could flick it. Maybe it would go for 5, 10, 20 minutes or longer. Especially if it was in a vacuum container of some sort, it might be possible to even give it a pull with a string and have it spin inside of a, some sort of vacuum condition, and there would be no resistance. Then it will spin for probably a very long time, and maybe that would be enough to create a light that you would simply spin in order to create the fields and create light or heat or levitation for your skateboard. Who knows? Put one on your hat. Maybe it'll levitate your head. Hopefully the rest of your body will go up too. Alright, so I think I'm wearing this one thin now. Any questions, comments? Have I lost my mind? That might be the question most would ask. No comments? No questions? Boy, you got a pretty quiet crowd here tonight. All right.
Where can we buy the ball with the screw?
Oh, this one here?
Yeah, a small one. A small and a big one.
Oh, yeah. They're available on eBay.
eBay, okay.
Let's see, let me try to find the link, because that's important that people
Yeah.
do have
Is
that.
that you push the light to us?
Yeah, you can spend a long time otherwise trying to find it. Let me just see if I can get it up here. Yes, just bear with me a minute here. Okay, there we go. Okay, let me put that up on the screen here. Okay, so this is, if you search for, in eBay, if you search for globe and a pendant globe, or a globe and vial, then you'll get a number of items that look like this. And I'll put the link to this particular one in the chat, but you can kind of get the same idea. Oops, something happened to the live stream. The live stream died. What happened? Okay, bear with me a minute here. It says ended, but it's not. Yeah. Okay, bear with me a minute while I get the live stream sorted out here. Something is astray. It seems to be broadcasting, yet it isn't. Okay, I see. It's there now. Good. I'll put the link in the chat for the live stream for these miniature globes. Now this is one particular style. There's many different styles of these globes. Some are longer tubes and different size vials and shape vials and whatnot. And they also have this. These particular ones do not have the screw bottom. You just glue the cap on in this case, and they make a nice pendant. And but you can't change your GANS mixture once it's in there. However, this same company also has the screw top version here. It mentions, and you can click on that. And this is the screw top version that I was just showing you, with the little knobby things on the bottom that unscrew. It shows an example here. So it threads into the hole in the bottom, same as the bulb type. And if you're really particular, you can get these in sterling silver as well. They're very expensive then. In this case, it's about $10 US. It's about $1 per vial, plus shipping. Shipping's the same as the cost, so it ends up costing about $2 a vial, depending on how many you get, between $1 something to $2 a vial US. And like I say, there's many other styles of these bulbs. Here's a nice one that some people might be interested in. This is a glass globe with a hole in it, and you can get a cork, a special rubber cork that comes with these. They come in 7 different diameters: 8, 10, 12 millimeter, 14, 16, 20, and 25 millimeter. And they're fairly strong. As somebody mentions, these really are as strong as advertised. I dropped one from standing height onto my tile floor with 0 damage. Crystal clear, and the shop owner is helpful and friendly. Yeah, I'll vouch for that. The little vials that I have, I've dropped on the floor quite a few times, and they generally bounce. I have broken a couple too. It is possible to break them, and they are glass, but they would withstand a very high RPM without much trouble. And they have other ones, as you can see, different styles. Here's some little globes with only corks in them. I'll put in the link to this particular site so that people can also go with that to might be better linked than the other one to see some of these things. You might want a tube, for example. If you had a curved tube like this, you might want to put several of them together, maybe to make a bracelet or something. It might end up being expensive. This is sterling silver ends on it, so it's kind of special. It would be good electrode ends, I would remind people, if they were making something electronic with this, some sort of capacitor, or maybe something that glows in the dark or glows with an arc or something like that. What else do they have here? All kinds of different, you can see some of the different shapes here. There's flasks, there's pointy vials, there's tubes, there's ones that look like a miniature bottle. Let's have a brief look at some of the other ones here. So that's basically it, I guess. They do have these ends available. There's 6 different colors available on the caps. In this case, there's no screw in these caps, so yeah, so different styles, different things available. You get your choice of style here, 10 different 10 pieces. Again, these ones don't have the opening caps, but you can specify them if you wish. Okay, any questions about that? Anything else?
Okay. And the ping pong ball for games. How can we we get
How can you get them?
a ping pong ball for
Well,
games?
how do you put the GANs in, you mean, or?
Yeah.
Well, okay. Yeah.
Because the ping pong ball have how many size do they have?
Right. Okay, let me just get my screen pinned here. There we go. Basically with the ping pong balls, there's two main sizes of ping pong balls. There's one that's I believe it's 40 millimeters and 38 millimeters. I think's the other one. So so there's two basic sizes. I mean, you can buy ping pong balls in most hardware stores, or even grocery stores have them in North America now, because people play ping pong ball games with putting, beer pong, I think they call it, where you bounce a ping pong ball into someone else's beer cup or something like that. So what I do is I take the basic ping pong ball. These ones are colored, and some of them you can get colored ping pong balls. You can get glow-in-the-dark ping pong balls. You can get, just the ordinary ones as well. This is the glow-in-the-dark one here. It's a little different kind of plastic, a little kind of cheaper feeling plastic. It's not so great for ping pong probably. But what I do is I just take a hot pin, just like a safety pin kind of thing. This is not a safety pin, but it gives the idea. I just heat up a pin. I use a pair of pliers to hold it, and a torch to heat it up almost red hot. Doesn't have to be red hot. And then I just poke the ball with it, and that will melt a little hole in there. And once you have a tiny little melted hole, then I just use my syringe. Let me show you the syringe I use. You can find it here. Just a second. Okay, so once you have a hole in the ping pong ball, the idea is I use a syringe like this. You can use any syringe with a needle on it, but I like to use a long tube that I actually made up with a thin piece of tubing I got at a hobby shop, and I glued it into the end of the needle here. This is removable actually. So I just the tube fit in quite tightly, and this is normally just a protective cap for the needle, or for the tube here rather, and that fits on there very nicely, and that gives me something I can put inside the ping pong ball, and then just inject your GANs in. And then once it fills up, it'll actually squirt out a little bit when it fills to the top, and you do your best to keep all the air out and pull out the needle toward the end and just fill it right up to the top. And then the trick, like I was saying earlier, is to glue it without it bubbling the water inside. So if you use hot glue, it's a little tricky, because the hot glue will tend to vaporize the water, it makes steam, and that creates bubbles in the hot glue, and sometimes the bubbles will leak. So I usually use an epoxy actually, and just carefully put the epoxy on. It's more or less waterproof stuff, so it tends to stick even when there's water there. And to let that set up for the 5 or 10 minutes it takes for the epoxy to set. And the thing about it is, don't leave it in a hot place, because if you do, it'll heat up the fluid inside and start to squirt it out through the hole that you're trying to glue. So it's best to cool it while the glue is setting rather than heat it. I don't think you should put it in the fridge maybe, but maybe that is a good idea. It might be a good way to have the glue start to pull inside the ball a little bit to sort of plug it more securely. If you were to put it in a freezer or in the fridge, at least briefly, to cool it down enough to pull the glue inside. So that's basically how I do it. I've done other ping pong balls too with what's called a septaseal glued onto it, which is a little rubber sort of cap. And the rubber cap you can penetrate with a needle, with a true needle for a syringe, and you can go right through the rubber cap that's made to be able to do that, to be able to add or subtract ganses to your GANS ball. I hope that explained the basics of that. You sort of have to play with it to come up with your own technique, but that's the way I do it. What else about that? These little balls are a little trickier. In this case, I just turn them upside down. I use a screwdriver to remove the actual, the threaded screw that I have in these. And that reveals the unit. It's kind of a little squirrely, but I can just put it inside of here, and then this fits right inside of the little ball. So now I'm able to access the inside of the, you can see the needle inside there. But like I say, I don't like this arrangement too much. It doesn't hold it really securely. You're better off with a small piece of rubber tubing or some sort of well, for example, I've got this other deal that I use here normally, and it has a rubber hole, and the little ball sits right in there nicely, and then I can you know, fill it at my leisure basically. And then once that's filled up to the top, then you have the challenge of putting the filled up unit back into the rotating device, which is basically you have the screw already in the screwdriver. I had to, by the way, if you happen to do this, I had to make up some little washers. Okay, I made them up because I took regular washers and I formed them with a punch, and I pushed down the middle. I just laid the washer on some wood and punched it in the middle, and that made it into a cup shape, as you can see. Instead of flat, it's a cup. Oops. Oh, the cup's on the floor. So what I do is I put the cup down into the middle there, like that. And then the screw goes down through there and has to connect with the little hole in the bulb. Once everything's all lined up, you just thread it in all the way. And bingo, there's a nice little rotating sphere. Normally it would be filled up right now, but I don't have any GANs in my syringe at the moment. And all ready to go. So you could fill up this in 5 minutes or something. Take out the screws, fill it with the GANs as you wanted, and put it back together again. And you can see I've got one of them here has some fluid in, but it's just not set up yet totally. Work in progress. It is happening. I wanted to use the little plugs that came with these units, the screw-in plug, but I'll show you why I didn't use those. Would have been much easier than trying to find the correct 3mm screws. That is 3mm is the key word to look out for those. But here are the little screw ends that go into the bulb normally. So if that's one of the bulbs, then the little screw end goes in something like that. It's not quite the way it works, but and then you can see it's got a hole in it, so that the hole is meant for a cord, so you can hang it on a cord basically. But that screw end, when I put it into the bottom of this, ended up sticking down too far, and then that prevents the unit from rotating. It would drag on the table. So the screw end, the normal screw end just didn't work. That's why I had to dimple that washer and use a special threaded screw here. So that's the deal. That gives enough clearance so the whole thing works. Cool, huh? I like it. It's fun. It's nothing better than fidgeting with some GANs containers, And then if you do your meditation, you can have this in your hands and do your breathing exercise or whatever special thing that you might like to do for your meditation, or for any other exercise you're doing with instant communications through your MagRav device. Well, maybe this could be considered a instant communication device. In fact, I thought maybe I'd put a strip of Velcro on the bottom here. I have a strap on my wrist with Velcro on it, and I'll Velcro this to it and just spin it basically on my wrist. So it'd be have that also Velcroed on, and I'll have a wrist MagRav. So anytime, you can keep this in your pocket all the time, or in some sort of protective bag perhaps, or protective box. And then if you want to know where you are anywhere in the universe, you just Velcro this onto your wrist and spin it up, and bingo, you know where you are. You're here. It'll be a universal time device for instant communications.
Rick?
Uh-huh.
One more question. When you put the GAN on the bowl, how many water and how many gans do we put?
How many?
A portion of gans and
Right.
water.
Well, that's entirely up to you what you wish to do. What I'm doing with some of these balls, like this one is a CO2. It'll be filled up. It's not filled right up all the way right now, but would be filled as much as possible with the CO2 gans. And here's a CH3 one. You can see it's partially filled, and it had maybe, when I filled it, it had about half gans and half water. But people might want to use just plain plasma water from the ganses rather than the gans itself. Or you might want to use, for example, in something like this with a central core and 3 rotating outside, it might be good to use the deuterium gans. You would have, or the hydrogen gans, and tritium, and create the deuterium through the interaction and this kind of thing. There's many options as far as loading capabilities with this, so it becomes infinite, the number, the possible combinations. Somebody says, Lucas says, "Hi Rick, can I discuss tritium and deuterium gans production with you when there will be time for it?" Sure, we can discuss that now if you like.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, hello. Is that Lucas?
Hi everybody, this is Lucas from Czech Republic.
Okay.
And I would like to discuss tritium and deuterium GANs production. I can show you some. First of all, I will show you. Sorry for my English, I'm not good at it. First of all, I would like to show you our tritium GANs kit. I try to start my camera. Can you see me?
Yes. Let me get you spotlighted.
Okay, thank you. I don't have external web camera. I will try to turn my computer. So, can you see it?
Yes, we see it clearly.
Okay, this is my tritium GANs kit, and in the middle there is a CH3 GANs.
Mm-hmm.
And on the sides there are nano-coated copper plate and the zinc plate connected with LED on the top.
Right.
And on the bottom there is a CO2 ganses. And my question is, should the CH3 ganses change the color when it transforms to tritium?
When we made ours in Arizona, it doesn't change colors. It will lighten up, if you will, to become more fluffy.
Mm-hmm.
So what you're doing is what are those containers made out of?
I think it's it is a plastic, but I don't know.
Okay, so that's a problem. In that, what you're trying to do is you're trying to pull the carbon out of the CH3, so you're left with just H3. And as long as you have the plastic in any of its forms, whether it's acrylic, plastic, the plastic paper you have on top, you're going to have a problem. So what you want to do is you want to eliminate the ability for it to pull a carbon bond within your environment. So what you want to do is deal with glass.
Yeah.
You want to have
This is exactly what I think about. This is what I want.
Looks real nice.
This is the bowl, which will be
much better. Perfect.
in this bowl, and the same I will do with these glasses.
So what you want to do is you want to have the top of the fish bowl with a glass top on it, or a plate or something like that of glass. But you want to have enough air between the top bowl and the space that the environment that you're in, to allow for the carbon to be pulled out of it.
Okay. Thank you.
Same thing with deuterium. Depending on how you make your hydrogen.
The deuterium was the second question, what I would like to discuss. I tried, I don't know if it's clear. I tried to create deuterium with voltage, but I don't know if you can see it. It's not too much darker. It's a bluish color of ganses. I put there to 0.8 volts, I think. And at the beginning, there were some black stuffs, but after a while, the only bluish gans appears.
So we've actually made 3 different versions of the deuterium GaNs. One is a bluish color, almost like a copper bluish color. One is a brown color, and one is a black color. Right now, I can't tell you which is the more preferred. They're all a form of deuterium, maybe different isotopes, if you will. So I think you can, believe that what you have is deuterium.
Okay, and when you use electricity, you get the black or bluish?
Well, I don't like to use 8 volts. 8 volts would be a little high for me.
0.8.
Well, okay. No, that's okay. And you're connecting your negative to the nano?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Then you're good.
Okay, thank you very much.
So again, what you're going to do with your deuterium that you have, once you pull it out, is you got to remove the carbon bond. Same process that you did with the deuterium, you're going to do with the deuterium.
Okay, I don't think I understand. You mean change the plastic with
once you harvest the deuterium out of your plastic containers, and you wash it, and you make it, so it's pure. Then you have to pull the carbon out of the deuterium also.
Ah, okay. So same process with tritium.
Yes.
Okay. This is new information for me. Thank you very much.
And be thinking about your amino acids that you're creating too.
And what should he do with the amino acids, John?
So if you think about what makes up the amino acids, it's hydrogen, carbon, nitrogen, and oxygen. Except think of them as being in a more powerful state. So just like he takes those amino acids, he can pull out the carbon away from it. and he's left with the other elements, most of which are hydrogen. Any clues there?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yep. There's clues there. Use your amino acids to do the same thing you did with your tritium when we first started the conversation. Maybe that's an easier way to get to your hydrogen.
It's the way your body does it.
Yep. So when you have all three of those, what you have are the creation energies, and with those creation energies, you can do a lot. You can do a lot. It's kind of like your building blocks for everything.
Hi, John. This is Valerie from Tenerife. I just have a small question about this process, like you do with tritium. What if we took CH4 and put it in a closed container and pulled out CH3, which leaves us with CH1, and then put this CH1 into a CO2 closed container and pull out the carbon? Do you think it will work?
I'm not sure exactly what you would get. A lot of times when you're dealing with hydrogen, one of the things that we do is we add the hydrogen into our mixtures, and we have what I call a hydrogenator. It bubbles hydrogen into our mixtures. I've seen other people use the the aluminum and caustic material to bubble hydrogen into their units. It's my feeling that once you put it in there, then you really almost have like a combination of, like with the tritium, you have not only tritium, but you also have hydrogen all in the same container. And for that matter, potentially deuterium too. Because the hydrogen will bond up with other hydrogen atoms in different cases.
Yeah, it's a little bit hard to know which is which because colors are so.
I don't know. You'll know when you have it. You'll know when you create, especially hydrogen GANs.
Could you be kind, please, to tell the colors again of H1, 2, and 3? What colors do you get?
So I think the colors can be like the rainbow in that there can be many different versions of a hydrogen GANs. I've heard it say that it had to be baby blue. Stuff I created initially was dark blue. I think that we've also created it when we put the hydrogenator into our CH3, where we combine the hydrogens together. So if you think about it, if you bubbled hydrogen into a plasmatic field, then you're adding a plasma of hydrogen into that mixture. So if it was H2O, for example, and then you're able to pull out the oxygen, you have the hydrogen molecules in there. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it probably will with time. Thank you, John.
Okay.
Hello? Any other...
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, can I ask you how long do you have a CH3 in the middle of the plate?
When we do it, it takes us quite a while, probably 2 weeks. And what you're looking for is or what we look for, let me put it that way, is when you start off, the CH3 will look flat in your glass bowl or glass container. And after a while, after 2 weeks, you'll notice that it starts to get fluffy. In other words, the carbon atoms are gone, and what's left is the hydrogen atoms. So it becomes lighter. And when you, like, for example, if you move it, it'll move much more freely than a regular CH3. Like it wants to float.
Thank you very much.
Okay, any other questions for John while we have him on the line here?
Yeah, I do have a small question about the water residue. How much water residue do you get when you pull out the carbon?
Water, I'm not sure. So if you started with a half a bowl of CH3, you're going to still have a half a bowl of CH3.
Yeah, but I mean when you produce tritium, if you pull out
half a bowl of CH3 or tritium at that point.
Oh, really? Because I had... Excuse me?
It's not like the material itself evaporates. You can't even notice the difference in the level of the material, if you will. If you started with a half a bowl of CH3 in your container, 2 weeks later, there's still going to appear to be a half a bowl of CH3 in your container, except it will become much lighter and much fluffier. And like, for example, if you put a needle in and took a syringe out, everything around it will like stay in place. It doesn't move.
All right, because I had different. I began with a full bowl with CH3, and it left me with about 1% of product in the end, which was black. And the rest was water, just water residue.
So when you started, did you let it settle, or I don't understand where you would start? Where'd you?
No, I just took CH3. I put it in a closed container, and I waited about 2-3 days, and this changed color to a little bit darkish, brownish, reddish color. And then I just well, I did two things actually. I put one in the fridge or freezer, and the other one I let dry out. The one in the freezer, it as soon as I took it out, when it became hot, it all turned into water and small black material at the bottom, which I thought was tritium then.
I don't understand your whole process, so I can't really comment on it.
Okay, that's okay. Thank you anyways.
Okay, very good. Thank you, John. Any other questions for John or about this subject?
So going back to maybe like a starship formation, where you put the various GANS material inside your starship formation. What you create are the creation energies, and with those creation energies, you heard Mr. Keshe talk about the motionless reactors. It's my feeling that you can move into the motionless reactors from the energy fields that you're creating. I think of these as when you have the three of those together as creation energies. It's kind of where we get the possibilities for moving into the replicators that he's talking about.
It's interesting that you see in the physics, or actually the astrophysics news, I guess, about creation of heavy elements are created inside of stars, and that's come up in the last few days in the astrophysics news, that they're pushing that somehow. This idea, the scientists are experimenting in the lab how to create the same thing, how to create the heavier elements, because apparently all the elements heavier than iron are created inside of stars with the additive process of adding hydrogen and helium nuclei to the element to get a heavier and heavier elements. And,
that's called by the classical physics fusion, if I'm not wrong.
Mm-hmm. And of course, normally it's done at exceedingly high temperatures, into the tens of millions of degrees and so on, inside of these stars.
They confuse again the effect with the cause.
Right, perhaps. Mm-hmm. But in any case, they end up basically sticking neutrons and protons onto existing elements and making heavier elements from that, which is essentially what we would like to do with our process, but minus the 10 million degrees temperature, which most of our ping pong balls won't handle.
I'd suggest to work with fields and use the knowledge from the first 3 chapters from here. Universal creation of matters. So you see here how the fields are adding up. And think about how about instead of those septmuffs, specifically entangled magnetic fields, to try to use the different field strengths from different ganses and to reach to such an interaction to a similar one. Just a hint.
Mm-hmm. Right.
We've got a lot of knowledge now. We have to find the applications and to learn better, to understand better what's written in the book by the observations during real physical experiments.
Right. And Mr. Keshe has compared the current scientific method of trying to achieve fusion as similar to trying to make an omelet with smashing together hard-boiled eggs, and it doesn't really work. So the high temperature and high pressures and so on just end up making the boiled egg even harder, and when they're smashed together they don't fuse, instead they get confused probably.
So Mr. Keshe's proposed method is by opening the plasma, and if we consider the plasma like fields which are winded up over a spiral, try to unfold the magnetical part so everything else will open.
That's a good example.
Yeah.
One side of your tape has stickiness to it, which is probably the gravitational.
You
And
went
the other,
further.
the other side has plastic, which is static electricity, which would be more magnetical. So you've got the whole spiral, the double spiral already in your sticky tape.
Yep. You went a bit further.
And actually, the sticky tape is a perfect example, Sandra, because what happens when you tear off that the tape, when you pull the tape, what they determine,
it was accidental.
What they determine with Scotch tape is it actually gives off X-rays when you pull off the tape.
Exactly, and it gets charged.
Mm-hmm.
Hey Rick, can I share a quick video that I made today, and maybe some of the creation energies will start to make a little more sense for some people?
Sure, go ahead. We'll get back to Shandor's drawing there afterwards. Go ahead.
Can you see that okay?
Yep.
Okay, so this is only a 1 minute video. So what I did is let me see if I can explain. We're here in Arizona, and what we've done is we've infused the energies into this ball and this crystal in the middle. Now the crystal has one energy. Now these are the creation energies that I was talking about with the hydrogen GANs, okay? And the ball with no crystal has another energy. And we're going to measure them both to see which is stronger, and the fact that both of them, they'll carry energy. But here's the open ball. Okay, so what we're going to do is douse the fields. Okay, so there's the energy field of the crystal. And then I'm going to replace this crystal. You put that wheel over there. And this was the energy ball that contained that crystal. Now we're going to seal it back up. We'll measure and see if there's any energy field in that ball. Again, almost the same strength. The ball has nothing but air, but it contains the energy fields. Okay. Does that give you any clue as to what's going on? So I don't know if anybody's seen the movie Valerian, where they had the pearl balls, that helped keep the planet thriving. Well, now we're going to have maybe energy balls.
What was the movie, John? Valerian? How do you spell that?
Valarian, I think. Valerian.
Oh, I see. I haven't heard of that.
Just came out a couple weeks ago.
Oh, okay. So energy balls keep the planet going, you were saying. Is that the idea? Okay, anything else? What do we got here, guys? Who'd like to present something or talk about something here? Okay, we're back to Shandor's screen. Okay, carry on, Shandor.
It was hard to unmute myself. I was talking again alone.
Okay.
So why the fields are winding over themselves in a spiral shape? So actually, this is not a flat spiral. It's something in 3 dimensions, which is very hard to draw it. This is due to the interaction of forces. So you see, when you have 2 fields of the same direction, or when you have 2 fields of a different direction, we get a different interaction in between. So if the fields are both in the same direction, then if I'm not wrong, they repel. Is it so? Can you agree with? Or is it the opposite?
Yeah, that would be generally the case. Like
Yeah.
if you had 2 wires that go in the same direction with the
if they go in the if the fields are in opposite direction, they attract each other.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the basic, and let's see what happens in this direction, for instance. So here you have 2 opposite direction fields which will attract each other. So from here to here you get an attraction, and from here to here you get another attraction. From here to here, you get another attraction. From here to here, another attraction, and so on. And now, in the same time, between this one and this one, you will get repulsion. They will pull apart each other. They'll push. So here you have a push, and here you have a push away. So here there are forces which try to spread it apart. And here you have forces which will pull together. And somewhere in the middle of them, there will be a balance between the attraction and repulsion. So that will be the balance point. So this is how you get the spacing between the layers. Same if you look like a cabbage or like an onion. So if you cut an onion on half, you will see it's made of such layers and layers and layers. It's created in a very similar way.
Mr. Sander, how are these rays and directions have been created?
So first you have independent rays which are separate from the sources, and those of the similar magnitude or near magnitude. So let's say A, B, and C, they meet somewhere, and those which are of equal or near equal magnitude, they start interacting each other. So A and B will start to operate together, so they'll entangle. Rick has a nice video about that with two rays.
No, it's a great explanation, really.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So it was a self-made scientist, Stefan Rado. He was born in Budapest, he lived in America, he just passed away in 2012. And he tried to explain the magnetism and in a different way, like flows. And of course, he didn't got all the reality, but he could inspire through his works. He was considering the ether, and he wrote 2 books, Electrokinematics and Electrodynamics.
Nice.
Which are available on the internet. And he suggested a simple experiment. It's not so easy to build it. You have to find the proper fans. but it's very, very interesting to how to demonstrate the fields. He suggested to create such a cardboard tubes, like you take a tube of Pringles, for instance.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I thrown away all the Pringles tubes. I had a couple, and you put inside a small fan, like a computer fan, but you need really a powerful fan.
Okay.
And you make them to flow the air from one direction to the other. And this would be similar to a bar magnet. So you have South Pole, you have North Pole, or you have entry and exit. Just you create a model which works with air flows.
Yes.
And you have the other one. And you see if you put two which are in the same direction, you can feel, of course, you have to attach thin wires, flexible wires, and some power source or to incorporate batteries, but it's better to make them light, to not be heavy. I tried to do that and the effect was slow because my fans were not too strong, but you put a strong fan. And you feel with your hands these forces, which will make to repel, or in case if you make them in opposite direction or any other direction. So here is entry, exit, and here is the opposite. Just let me draw these arrows. Then you will feel that they are pulling together. And some of the flow will get in the circuit, which comes out from here, enters there, and from here it goes out and enters on the other side. So you get such interactions. That's very good as an educational toy. And also you can try to make a thin tube with a pipe with a fan inside, and a larger one with a stronger fan. So here you have an example of a model for rays of different strength. So here you have this similar strength, and you will see the difference in interaction if they are of the same strength or of different strength. So this is a big flow, and the other with a smaller, a weaker flow. One with a stronger, the other with a weaker. And you can see the differences of interaction. These are things to play with. Also, you can play with ring magnets and see the interaction. So ring magnets which are polarized axially. And these behave very much like the fields of a plasma. So playing with ring magnets, it's again a very good way how to play with them and to understand the interactions of fields.
Very good. Thank you. I have a similar kind of chart that I put it together. Is it okay if I share my camera? If that's okay with Mr. Rick?
Go ahead.
Let me just...
Wow.
We're not hearing you, Alper. We see your camera, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes. Thank you.
Sorry about that. So in terms of diagram, it's not that different than Mr. Sandor's understanding. What I have called with all these fields, names, some terms with my understanding, it could be different for someone else. So what I've decided, where the generation of the fields comes from the center of it, where the density is much more like our Earth. So I called it, it's our Earth here, right in the middle. It represents our us 3D density. I'm not talking about the shape. Is not concerned. I'm not concerned with that. I don't mind. So I divided the fields that is being generated from here into three, saying one of them is a very genuine intention, which is it's not dense at all. It floats and it penetrates everything and reaches out of the boundaries, whatever the boundaries are. And the other one is an idea. You're on Earth and you want this car really desperately. That's what your understanding is. So what happens is you start fluctuating from here, and then you go up, you penetrate this genuine understanding, and then you go float, perhaps come close to the understanding of everything. But no, whatever you desire as a density, it will go back to its source as a density. It would find its source. So what I've described, the fields being fluctuated comes out of the density is three. One is a very less dense, one is dense. One of them is just something that floats around with the understanding, with the acceptance of everything, and willing to learn more, fluctuates all over the place, comes here and meets with other soul, other understandings, and just bounces back here, and it goes back and comes back and fluctuates everywhere. But the target is not going to be back to its source, because the thought is such a floating, less dense idea that he wished that it will go through the totality of the field that I recall is the plasma field, where we reside within our understanding of the 3Dness. So if we wish to penetrate it, just wish a genuine idea, and it would go through, and it would it multiplies in sequences towards whatever you wished. When it comes to another dense material to be able to find our positions, it goes through, like Mr. Keshe explains it, within its field. It reaches out, it has to reach out, the density has to reach out within itself, no matter where it is. It maybe bounces back its fields from another material, but in the end, it has to find it. So it's quite similar, really. What happens here is unending. I have described three person has three understanding of everything, and how it bounces and travels through everywhere. We are billions of people living on this little tiny dense material, and so this is all unending. What is unending? Every idea, no matter what it is, whether you want a material, money, or whether you want to ascend, will touch each other, has to fluctuate with each other. Whether you're asking a lighter or a pencil to someone, or an address to someone, you would bounce them, you would push them forward, and that's just how it goes. This understanding, when it comes to its totality, I called it a Feldram, which is collective thoughts, intentions reflected from the totality of the matter. In the end, we reflect one thing when it's been looked from the totality, like a bird view. No matter what you do, in the end, it makes one thing. and that creates our totality field, and we could call it aura, but that's just one thing. And that's just when we understand that, in the end we resonate the one thing, because no matter what happens here, whether you want this or that, or it will be created from this point, billions of them, and it will fluctuate and touch each other and bounce back each other, as Mr. Sandor explained it. And it will come to a point where, whether you understand it, whether you would like to go out with your intentions, whether you it's your decision, it's all your understanding, and that understanding reflects towards everywhere, like sun, moon. Our intention reflects towards everywhere. Every of our thoughts creates a field, and the field, depending on the density of the wish, it travels. It has to travel. It's unending. So it comes back to, it's all this, it's a beautiful understanding. That's just what I wanted to say. Where the soul resides within all this, is plasma our soul? Is plasma our intentions? Is our intentions our soul? These are the questions where we need to find ourselves one by one. To my understanding, that means something else, but for someone's understanding, it's all the same. But what we're talking about in the end, that the totality of the understanding, when you look at it from a bird view, it is just one thing. This is what I call Feldram. There are other layers within our layers that we reside with, that we live with. These are other lessons or other talks, but everything that we see, we don't see, has an oscillation, has a field within themselves. Those fields sends out other fields with under a title of different understanding, different energies. Therefore, everything is bounces back with each other within respect. And what I call is our wish, is our command. It pretty much makes sense, really, because when you see it all, just what you want, it is just okay. What is plasma resides where all that plasma field, what I call it is everywhere within its understanding, within its intention. It has a field where it contains us with its beautiful intention. It's always there. It's always one. We talk about love all the time, it's love this and love that. It's plasma. That's what we're feeling. We call it entity. Everything stone is an entity when you look at it from a right perspective. Therefore, of course, plasma is an entity. It has an intention and has a duty to be able to reflect what it feels, what it understands. And it's so giving. When you want a car and it goes up to the field, this post-plasma state border, and then depending on your wish, it gives your wish back to you, and then it materializes. It has to materialize. Remember the understanding of book Secret and all that understanding, and it all tells you this. That's where your wishes, your command comes from this idea, because, well, let's say you match your density, your intentions towards the understanding of the we call it being of plasma, and then plasma is going to let you free. Of course, it's going to say, okay, you can go wherever you wish. Your wish is your command, because it's so fluid. The fluidity reflects towards other entities inevitably. In our universe, everything is a duality. Everything, while we're here, while we're understanding, is going to be perceived that way inevitably. It's just, we can't do that. Therefore, when you sleep in this density, you float everywhere. Why can I say that? How can I say that? There are many more understanding. Let's not go into manipulating, or I don't mean to, but that's just more than enough. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, but the model, I haven't created anything. Please don't get me wrong. This for sure. All that comes from everything that I've learned from us, from everything, all the past years, and this and that. But it is somehow resonates within me. When I look at it, I still want to look at it, and when I look at it, I can clearly see it. And then when I add millions of other people here, and I can see how it bounces back within each other, and then inevitably, if you penetrate, go towards understanding. With our understanding, yes, we can. But when you're here, your perspective pretty much is in here, very solid. You don't have a second sight easily, like a second nature, look from this point to you. So you need to be able to look from this point slightly towards yourself to be able to bring your ideas less dense and denser, and so that when you want a car, okay, you want a car to serve this idea and that idea. When you say that, that goes towards this genuine intention area, and then you see it matches with everything. It all sits onto my understanding. I mean, of course, maybe, yeah, maybe you were here within your dreams, but you cannot remember. Why? Because your soul is fluid. It floats all over the place. We can't control it at the moment. And maybe you were here and you talked to whoever were here, but you can't remember it. When you remember it, actually, your understanding matches clearly. If your intentions matches with your presence, aligns with plasma. So that all like little bits of puzzles and putting into places. And if you're that peaceful, then no one can stop you, and you don't have to challenge with no one. You don't have to talk to no one. And then you just, if you wish to do that, you can just move on. And there are many of them that just they move on, and they don't talk about it. Oh, this is very interesting that I have found. I've said soul is oscillating around the intention. For instance, you have wished still a car, okay, but your parents love you and they pray for you, and their understanding, their intentions, they start oscillating around you, that intention, until it matches with your intention from the source of the point at that moment. And then it goes on and on, and that's just like, that's praying, and that is being clearly want your intention so pure that you want that person to achieve that. And then multitasking, of course, we're not just occupied for that. We multitask everywhere. As I said, our soul bounces all over the place. Your intention, you don't have one intention. Of course, you were born here and you just thought one thing, and then you just wait for it. Okay, it's not that. We sometimes generate the feeling. What we really need to do, don't think about it, and then don't overreact or over manipulate of it, because let the set it course. Because once we start thinking about it, what happens is just it has a reaction between the understanding of the totality of the plasma that we called it as a being. It just it differentiates between that idea and then that idea, and then it changes its magnetical and gravitational field, and then it changes its direction. Okay, don't think about it too much. Talking about it even sometimes does that. So imagine billions of people are doing that all the time, constantly. We're doing it. It's unending. Fields are unending. Interactions are unending. It's it cannot be perfectly calculated, or perhaps from my point of view at the moment, I can't really. I mean, I come up with this, with just pushing it. Even I added some normal areas within the boundaries, which it resides like a balloons where you fold and turn that into a doggies, or shape it like, those tubular balloons. It's like it resides right here, and between our so-called, I called it sphere of influence, and in between our where we reside, like that balloon, and then they're there. You can tap in. It's like other beings tapping into our consciousness, that we have that area that we call the paranormal, that we can tap in to those areas if we wish to. But we're so foreign at the moment that we don't even get the idea of it. But that we just, if we know it where it is, that is the idea at the moment. That's what I come up with, really, the common denominator for all of our understanding. So that pretty much sums it up. Thank you so much. I love you for listening. I really do so much. Thank you. I'm turning the camera off now. Thank you.
All right,
I just
thank you,
want.
Alper. Go ahead.
Well, it's brilliant, Alper. This is Libby. This is brilliant. Thank you so much for your share. I love it. I hope you bring it to others, or that others come to watch this, because that was brilliant.
Oh, thank you, Libby. Thank you so much. I follow you. I listen to you with I'm all ears with your understanding, and I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Your saying makes big sense to my understanding. I feel like I'm supported. Thank you. I love you.
I am present with what you're doing. Thank you. Thank you.
Jay seems to like it too. He says, Alper's book's cool. It reminds me of something you might have seen Leonardo da Vinci carrying about. Looks like someday it would be in a museum. Nice.
Oh, very kind of you. I'm a painter, and I drove, and I love Leonardo da Vinci's drawings. Yes, it resembles it. It's all my understanding. It just flows through it. Nothing fancy, actually. If you believe me, it just came from this middle point of the of us, like the density, and then it divided into three understanding. It could be billions, but yes, thank you.
It truly is exquisite. It's I will definitely recommend people come and watch this over and over again, because it's beyond words, Alper. Excellent explanation. Excellent.
I'm definitely giving all the credits, all whatever we call blueprints or whatever, to us. You can freely say that I made it, or I have an input into this, because you have, believe it or not. Everybody is, whatever it is just, I don't even know, really. Thank you so much for giving the credit too much, and I'll wake up really smiling tomorrow. Thank you so much. It's all yours, really. It's not mine. Do you get it? I'm telling you.
Yes, I get it.
from my
I get it 100%. It is all us. It's so perfect. It really is it's like the onion, you know, the sticky tape really helped me get the idea of gravitational magnetic. And then when you jumped in with that, it was like a completion of an idea of the entire blueprint piece and everything we've been talking about right there on paper with dynamic motion within it. It's perfect. It's just perfect from my perception anyway. Thank you.
Right
Well,
on.
the sticky tape, whoever was the sticky tape person was the fire starter.
Sandor.
Really, that's amazing. And then Mr. Sandor, and then it came to this point. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, isn't that a beautiful progress or process,
Yes,
shall we
yes,
say?
indeed. The sticky tape actually generates a plasma in it, actually when you pull off the tape. A plasma in the scientific sense of plasma. It's a high voltage arc that occurs, and there's all kinds of interactions that occur in that surface that they had no idea when Scotch tape came out that was possible. They only discovered it a few years ago, and it ended up being an easy way to create X-rays, I believe now, is they have a special machine that basically strips off tape, sort of the stickiness. I was going to play the plasma animation, and we'll just have a look at that while we. Oops, I got to share it here. Actually, let me just do my sharing. And I've got another one that I put together that I've only shown a couple of times. It was just a demonstration thing. Let me go back to the beginning here. So this is the plasma animation showing the rays. And we see the interaction of rays, but as has been mentioned by
We're
Mr.
not seeing
Keshe.
it yet, eh, Rick?
Oh, no? I
No.
did share it, but I guess it didn't come through. Let me try it again here. Thank you, Libby, for letting me know. I'll go back to square one
Yeah,
here.
it's good now. Yep.
Okay, try that again. So, here are the rays. So there's this magnetic rays shooting through space, and then we see it sort of interact with another ray. But as Mr. Keshe mentioned, this bending of the ray can occur just through its own magnetic gravitational separation in the ray itself. It doesn't have to interact with another ray like this, the way it's shown, in order to complete the process of bending in on itself and essentially chasing its own tail. But it doesn't necessarily take two to tango in this case. It can be done with one, because the one has the two, has the magnetic and gravitational built into it, so we understand it. Anyway, we carry on, and that forms this new solid-like entity, which through rotation and interaction with its environment becomes a plasma. With its own fields. And what I did is, where did it go here? Just 1 second. So I've got another version that I put together that I'll show now that incorporates this video, and I just did a little bit of simple animation with it and modified it a bit and added a beginning and end and so on. It was just a demo tape, you could say, or a demo version to help the animators make a better version of it. But I'll show it anyway here because it's kind of fun, I think. This has a bit of a snazzy beginning, but so I wanted to make it part of the Spaceship Institute thing. Okay, we're back to the ray, the principal fields, you could say, which become the plasma, as the previous movie we saw. So this brings in the idea, what if you have two of these plasma entities, or three, and the idea of the free plasma formed in between them. But also the idea of positioning, that these plasmas, if they're protons and electrons and that kind of thing in atoms and molecules, it's basically what we see as solid matter is all of these little plasma suns, basically, inside the atoms themselves. Or of course the sun is their other form of plasma. And that was it. So anyways, that was...
Well, the plasma, I think plasma is everywhere, really.
Right.
I think plasma, we call the whatever is the plasma, it focuses on when the matter is moved and shoved really intensely. And then it likes to be kind of create that focus field around that particular matter. And it can be a Earth, planet, star, or as little as our pen. That I think it's everywhere within our within our universe, and we with our tools, corresponding tools, we focus it on towards what we want. Even within the help of the tools and the teachings, we're realizing within ourselves that we're actually the tools, particularly within ourselves. We can focus it any point that we wanted to, and with any angle. That's what I understood, really. It's everywhere. Like when I look at this picture, I see it. Only it's because it's focused. There were these matter combination, that the solidness, the density is the attraction of the opposite side of it is plasma. It focuses as it's being created. The duality, that's where it comes. It has to be that. Okay, to my understanding, when I said it kindly, and that's why many points here has to exist, but what happens around them is because of what was around them in that black area. That's what it is.
Okay, well, Jay asks, would it be right to suggest that every planet or star will or has a sun-like core, or had? Well, that would be the...
Okay, what does he really want to say with that? Because I can go into many different explanations with that. What is exactly what he would like to express? Is there anything else, or that's just it?
Well, I think the main point would be that there is a, call it a Caroline core, or a central core or soul, or a center to virtually every object in the universe.
Absolutely, as I explained it, every thought, as I said, from the 3D that we reside on this earth, creates the field, so it's unending, and therefore they will each one of them will have unending cores within themselves up until the point where they settle. They will have chaos. Many cores will trying to overcome each other and trying to find their positions, and in the end, where we think it's settled, but it's settled within a larger time of period. It's not happening this chaos very often. Now it is happening in a larger period. It is still happening. We're on this earth. It goes on and on and on. It just burns it all out, really. And all what happens all in between is what it actually matters. What we can manipulate, as I can say, it's not the right saying, but okay, I say it is. What we can manipulate is not the matter itself; is what is between, in between. You join it as a third. Okay, you become the third, and then that interaction happens. But you need to know your items. You need to know. Well, the training for that is looking towards your GANs buckets, where you are producing it. As look at it while you're looking at it. Start step by step, look at it, and then wish for it, and then you'll see different things is happening. It does happen.
And you can also do the Caroline's exercise of looking in the mirror if you want to look at GANs, because we're basically GANs buckets ourselves. And you can look in the mirror and set your intentions that your GANs bucket is okay, that it's I have a beautiful GANs bucket and it's fine. I don't have to criticize it, I don't have to analyze it. I can just accept it as being okay and move on from there. Basically, it's a vessel for our soul, and I'm happy to have it, and that kind of thing. You can work.
I've put inside the GANs bucket. I am a very experimental person, as you have noticed. I don't hesitate doing very unbelievable things. And in the beginning, right as we started learning and creating GANs buckets, I put crystals inside but a crystal is not quartz crystal. It's just I can't remember. It's just being different type of crystal where I put inside. Please do that, and wish for things. What I have found, this you can believe it or not. I don't mind. I have videos on my website, on my Facebook. There are writings I found in the morning. All peace. Many different miracle types of things where you witness because of your wish. It is I have been saying many different sort of crazy things, but believe me, it's all real. I haven't done anything unbelievable here. All I have done was to follow the teachings where I have experienced, but do everything that you have, cheeky things. You are a naughty boy or girls, do something really cheeky in terms of understanding your understanding, and trick yourself and surprise yourself. These are the keys of the step. That is all, really. That's it. That there is nothing else.
Thank you, Alper. Maybe we can move on to Lucas, who says he'd like to share one more idea how to create the hydrogen ganses. Do you want to say something there, Lucas?
Yes, thank you, Rick. How can I draw something?
Okay, you see the share screen?
Yes.
You can go to whiteboard. Or I can set it up if you like, and you can annotate.
It says you cannot start screen share while the other.
Oh, let me stop the screen share, and maybe it'll make it easier for you there. You see if I have to give you permission. There we go.
Yes.
Yep, there we go.
Okay, so let's say we have our box with salt water, and we know how to do ganses from ganses. So let's say we put here a tritium gans, and here deuterium gans, and connect it. And shouldn't we collect here hydrogen ganses, because the strength of the plasma here, the difference is one hydrogen? What do you think about it? Can you hear me?
Yep, we hear you. Just trying to evaluate. That makes sense on a logical basis to me. How about others? Somebody else have input on that? I'm not sure how that would manifest. It might manifest as hydrogen gas in the solution.
Yes, that's all from me. It was idea. I didn't know if somebody mentioned it before. But
yeah, it makes sense. I can't argue with it. Anybody else want to argue with it? All right, well, any discussion on it then? Any input? Let's have a look at the live stream, see if anyone's live there.
I don't know if John is there or not now.
I don't see John here right now.
Okay.
So the chance to ask questions of him is no longer with us. Okay, well, it's a good idea though, and it makes sense and should be definitely experimented with once we have the tritium and deuterium ganses. So anybody that does that, please let us know what the results are. I saw Mark's video up there. Mark, do you want to go ahead with something?
Oh, hi, Rick. I'm just late to the party.
You're always right on time.
But I definitely agree with everybody that's, you know, from a little bit that I've caught here in the last 45 minutes to the hour. I just love Alper. Well, Alper knows me, and, you know, when he speaks from his heart and everything. And I just, you know, it's so appreciated when he puts things together and he tries to, you know, help us to manifest the things that we all are thinking, and he puts it out on paper and does the legwork. You know, it's hard. You know, a lot of us, you know, there's a lot of people that watch these videos, but not a lot of people do the legwork. And Albert's one of them that does the legwork. And we thank you, Albert, for all your dedication. You're right up there. Thank you.
Speaking of dedication, how are we going on your project here, Mark? It looks, it's starting to look kind of like one of those Chinese buildings, or maybe a shrine of some sort. That's it, Chinese shrine, or maybe Tibetan shrine. How about that? This is a Detroit shrine.
I will say that I did sit in front of it and pray that it did, you know, do what I wanted it to do before I first started. I will say that, you know, because I wanted my unit to enjoy itself. Like Mr. Keshe said at the very beginning, it's not that we're praying to a piece of machinery. We're praying to that what we put ourselves into is something that we can have an end result from. So yes, I did sit in front of it. Yes, I did say prayers in front of it, and in regards to hopes that of results that I would have liked to have had happen. So yeah, it might be a little Tibetan, a little Chinese, a little this, that, but it's the, you know, you got to see what the Detroit style of it was last week with the speed and all that. That, I mean, we were just laughing and having a good time with it, but I tried to take it to a different level, and I tried to add some things to it. I completely broke the whole entire thing. You can see some Gants in the background there on the wall that spit out and broke, and
You really pushed the limits, did you? And exceeded the limits even.
I don't even, Rick, I don't even know. My question today is, how did this work last week? I mean, you've seen the numbers. You've seen me go from direct DC to AC, and how high the voltage was. And I mean, it was incredible. I don't even know how it happened or how it was even working.
Well, I'm surprised it held together. That she was really revving, and what was it, like 40 volts going into a 12-volt motor or something. And yeah, it was pretty exciting. But the Gans ball let go this time. I could see the smear across the wall there. It looks like I would say CH3 Gans, if I'm correct.
Absolutely, my friend.
Well, maybe
so the end result is that the speed was so high that at the where I drilled the hole in from the shaft to the lampshade connection that we talked about. It's a beautiful connection. The lampshade holder fit right on there and slid right on the shaft. Well, once I drilled the hole in it, then all of a sudden that became the weakest point. because at that the egg finally let go, but really the metal broke before the egg. The egg once the metal broke, the egg let loose and smashed off, spinning everywhere.
Well,
So
maybe you've invented a new kind of paint sprayer for spraying a room with Gans paint. You just set this thing in the middle, let her rip, and it'll paint the walls for you.
And you probably won't have any heating problems this winter, Mark. Your room will just be naturally warm, very warm.
Yes, there you go. Well,
so,
needless to say, for the kids at home, wear your safety glasses when you're doing these kinds of experiments, because things can happen like this. So you don't want to poke your eye out. That's the main thing. You can lose a finger or two, that's okay, but don't poke your eye out. You need them.
You got to see where you got to go tomorrow.
Yeah, you got to be able to see your way through Home Depot to buy more parts the next day. So,
but it's this adventure of mine has been so joyful and so uplifting in my soul and in my heart, and the joy is it's incredible how much happiness this has brought me, that I've come to a conclusion that we're working in our basements and our back garages and stuff and now we're getting to a point where it could become a little bit dangerous. And if we just step back for a minute with observation, and I think that was one of my main things, is that I said to myself, observation in practical science is everything. If you don't observe what you're doing, you can never give yourself a complete answer. So once you do that, and once you step back and start to answer the questions that you've seeked out to find, then and only then you'll be able to be satisfy your own self with the answers in which you give yourself. And this is the point we're at right now. I believe that we are at a point in time and space that people like us we're at the forefront of being able to say yes to these things. We don't fear them anymore. We step to the forefront. And when I say these things is because I think that better things, people with real things are just standing on the outside of our reality, ready to say to us, you are ready to accept these sort of realities, but we needed to know that you would be able to step outside the boundaries or the box in which you live in to be able to accept these sort of things. And I think that was the basis that Mr. Keshe sort of, in a peaceful intention that allowed us to step out of our box. Here I am with wires and eggs and tubes. It told myself, my personal self, I can step out of my box and allow myself to receive other things that might not be in these realms that I see within my eyes at this point in time. So if you don't have people that are starting to condition you to accept other realms or other conditions, then you would never be able to accept or step to the next point. We are the stepping point from A to B. These funny contraptions that we're making now will make more sense to people, just like when they made tin pots, and you can just imagine, just look around you when people said years before, look what we have now. Well, the people previous to us would say, they would never have an idea. I live with a 91-year-old woman who says, I would have never have guessed that these sort of things would have manifested in my lifetime. And I had to step back and think to myself, wow, why are all 7.5 billion of us here right now? To redeem ourselves, to understand what we have all went through. We're in a redemption process right now, if that makes sense. There are so many people here, more than there ever was before. And all of us have recycled over and over and over on this earth lifetimes. And like Mr. Keshe said, this is a little egg, a little hatchery for our souls to move to the next step. This is exactly what we're doing. We are proving to ourselves and proving to each other that we can be peaceful in moving to the next step. This is exactly what we're doing with these little steps, of you know, who would ever have thought that I'm a painter from Detroit. Look what you're looking at. I thought about this for a long time, and it worked, and it should not have worked. What I put together last week, and you've seen the motor running and everything, from the AC to the DC, from the speed, from the voltage, it should not have worked. But these are lessons of our ability to step out of the box and accept certain realms that are coming in our time and space. In a peaceful way, we have to accept all of us. And that's why I think there's so many of us here right now, is that we have recycled over and over and over that some of us are good, some of us are bad, and some of us are in between. But we have an opportunity to, before I believe, is the split again. We're going to split again because people believe that we need to move to the next level of humanity. We don't need to kill each other anymore. And those that feel like that we have to kill each other have to stay killing each other. We don't need to kill each other. We need to learn how to stay alive and move forward. And the reason why I feel that is, this is really a wild hypothesis in my own thinking. And I don't even know why it keeps on popping into my mind that if we were smart enough in the olden days to send people out far enough to explore the universe, we would have to have some way to have them to find a beacon to come back to us. And I think that's what we're doing now. If we were all, if we sent a posse of people out to explore and we needed them to come back at this point in time, and we sent out a signal to them, they may be 7.5 billion light years away. Could you imagine that? To say, hey, it's time now to come home to reclaim your humanity. We sent you out. We should have done our jobs better here, but now it's here and now it's time. The crack is time for those that are way out to come home and redeem what is rightfully theirs. We are here, you are there. we will all come together in a peaceful manner. And that's a really wild concept of my own thought. But I believe by doing this, by the energy of all of us in the pulse of peace, is calling all these souls home to redeem their glory, the glory of this earth. Because this is a beautiful place, and it was meant to be more than what we are, what we know, what we are veiled right now to know. But I believe that we are calling souls home. Instead of sending souls out, we're calling souls home here on earth in order to make this transition. That's my guess. That's my hope. That's my prayer. Because everybody that has lived on this earth deserves a whole lot more than what they were served.
Well said, Mark. Well said. Thank you.
I love you, Mark. I'm so grateful for all your contributions.
I love you too, Libby. We've been friends for a long, long time.
Yeah, we have, haven't we? Woo. And this is good. I'm so glad I have no classes to attend, so I can make this one. And I even missed it, slept through my alarm. I don't know how I do that, but I do. But it is. We are joining together. We are the beacons. And yeah, it's time for all of us to go home. And home is in our hearts, so we're already home. But did you catch Alper's drawing, Mark? Did you come in on time to see Alper's drawing?
About halfway through, and it was beautiful.
Wasn't? Yeah. And that came from a sticky tape. Did you get that part?
No, that must have
really, really cool too. If you think of sticky tape as the gummy part, as the gravitational, and the shiny part as the magnetical, and we now see both fields on the same surface, but more or less for our eyes. It was just like what a great way to explain this to people. So, yeah, it was like,
one
wow.
of those aha moments.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you'll have to review that, Mark. It was Shandor was showing that with the sticky tape, which you know, when you pull off tape like Scotch tape or packing tape, it goes, you know, and makes this noise, and at the same time it gives off radiation. It gives off X-rays, actually, and they've just found that out a few years ago. And you can actually in a really dark room, you can pull the tape quickly and see little flashes of light that are given off by the tape, and it looks very much like the spiral maggrav field that Mr. Keshe draws so often, and we use as a reference. That spiral magnetical gravitational image can be represented by the sticky tape. It was great. So you'll have to review that
I will.
moment.
Yeah. I've been working so much, and I set my alarm and I try to keep myself awake, and sometimes it's tough.
Yeah. It's a lot going on in life. It's hard to keep
I
up
don't know
with
how
it all.
you do it, Rick. I want to give you kudos. Jay's been mentioning that you're getting close to your, is it 100th show?
Well, there's this rumor that 100th show is coming up and so on, but there's actually more than that, because it went on for almost a year before the shows that were up are up. I'm going to try to find some of those older ones, so that's.
So we're looking at 152, maybe.
Well, it's going to really mess up the 100th anniversary, because it'll have to be retroactive back now, because ones will get added to the earlier ones, and all of a sudden we're up over 100 instead of celebrating 100 or whatever. I think there's about 95 in the file there now, or something like that. Maybe a bit more. I just added the last 5 videos, actually. I didn't have July up and one of June and August, one of August. So they're all up on the Spaceship Institute site and my Mr. Fix It Rick site as well now in the playlist.
Since this is to be a week of celebration, I think we should celebrate now that you've done such an incredible job. So we're manifesting some really beautiful plasma celebration cake with all the GANs we could possibly need to keep us going. And I invite you to just take so many kudos from, well, from me for sure, but from all of us. I know how much you have been an integral part to our understanding this plasma technology. So bravo, bravo. Celebrating many, many more sessions if that is what we need.
Thank you very much, Libby. Make sure it's wheat-free, gluten-free cake, or else I wouldn't be having very many sessions.
It's just plasma cake. It's got nothing in it that will do any harm
Well,
anywhere.
Even in the plasma zone, there's probably the plasma of gluten out there somewhere too, trying to get me. So
and then there's
to be careful of that.
Oh, well, then let's pull in the natural enzyme that will help you, because it exists everywhere, right? We create as we're creating our reality, we're now creating all the solutions we're ever going to need for anything. That's how I see it. I love you,
Yes,
Rick.
it seems that way, doesn't it? And it seems like we're getting closer and closer to having almost instant manifestation of the things that we wish as well. I mean, that's inevitable with our the way the planet's going, the way manufacturing is going, and so on. It's everything's in just-in-time delivery, and you know, anything you can think of, and if you can put it onto a 3D file, poof, you can have it printed and delivered to your door within hours, if not minutes, you know. And more and more, the things that we think will be manifest right in front of our eyes, even without manufacturing and all that involved. That's just sort of the matter level representation of what's going on a greater level, where those who are you know, if there are those that are on the higher levels, will be able to just think about what they wish, or what they wish for humanity, or or their needs for the moment, and poof, it manifests. And I think that's where we're going eventually, is manifesting what we need at the point of needing it. And that's what it's all about. And that's what the greatest yogis and gurus have suggested in the past, that some of them were of high enough elevation that they were capable of manifesting, for example, a flower out of the air, and you know, give it to a devotee or something, or create fragrances that people can smell in the you know, actually change the atmosphere with their presence, with their thoughts, and other such miracles. What we call miracles, because we don't understand, or haven't, at least up till recently, understood the science behind it. So once you understand the science behind these so-called miracles, then they're no longer miracles, because then they can be replicated and can be understood. So that's the main thing, is that's part of what we do, is try to understand things on a multi-dimensional levels, many levels at the same time. Crayon smell. Yes, thank you, Elper.
Well, I want to add, if I can, Rick, that I think we already do manifest all our thoughts. And that's why our world is so crazy, because we've not really understood the power of our thoughts.
Okay, yeah.
And that is what the yogis and others, and certainly Mr. Keshe and Carolina, are now helping us focus. And Alper's drawing really made that clear, that there's so many interactions that happen once a thought is released, that if we're not careful, we create or continue a pattern or a filter that's really not something we want to do. And that's that awakening to our own power. And that's where we're all coming to. And even what's going on, for instance, in the Belgian court system, from my understanding, they are exposing themselves. All judicial systems are starting to expose how much control is offered to those powers that were still trying to control the world. But we as humanity are waking up going, wait a second, none of these new laws make any sense. Where are the universal laws? And we're back to working within the universal laws. And by focusing our attention on the universal laws, like Mr. Keshe says, good conduct is a universal law. Then we reach out to outside of these current constraints that we're feeling, and all of us are pretty much feeling them very tightly, especially our beautiful families in countries that may choose to make laws that say you can't listen to Keshe. So it is amazing how our lives are unfolding. And here in your beautiful plasma reactor group, we get to have conversations about what it really is about. And our thoughts are that powerful, are so powerful. Thank you.
Good point, Libby. And it's through the conscious creation of those thoughts with a deliberate intention behind them, a very specific intention and creation of environment and so on around the thoughts that we wish to grow, or we wish to manifest in the world. And I think that's the difference. Is I mean, we're under so many influences in our cultures around the world. Each culture, each area has their own pressures and influences that more or less impinge on you since you're born, and even before you're born. I mean, most newborns have already heard probably thousands of ads before they're even born, because of the mother just being around radio and TV and other sources of advertising and so on, and other influences that may not be the best. And so we come out of the womb, we're already programmed in a way for our culture, and ready to absorb more of that type of programming. And it doesn't lead, most of the influences don't lend themselves well, especially advertising, toward providing a independent, alive and awake human being. It's designed to provide for those advertising is designed to wake you up in a way, but then wake you up and fill you full of the information on how to make it down to the center aisle of the supermarket and buy a particular brand of soap, for example. Instead of opening us up in the way that advertising can, and then filling us full of good intentions, like to help others and to go out and do good things in the world, and to innovate and get involved in different movements and so on and so forth. That could be instilled in us, but instead we're trained to, oh, go buy this car, or oh, go buy that soap, and oh, must have this cola, or whatever it is that drives us from one moment to the next, basically, with our habits and so on, and that we've been preyed upon because we're susceptible to those influences. But now more and more people are regaining control of their life by recognizing those influences and knowing that, oh, okay, so, you know, the whatever pharmaceutical companies have been advertising all these drugs, and so now I know what that's about. It's about selling drugs. It's not about the drugs are necessarily to help you or to, you know, create better health or anything. It's basically to make money for the drug manufacturers and so on. So you recognize that, oh, okay, I'm not going to listen to those ads. I'm not going to buy those products because I don't like the way I don't like their intention. I don't resonate with that intention. I have a different intention, and so on. So we learn to look inside of ourselves and look outside in the world, and you know, evaluate how much we're actually influenced by this conditioning, if we're able to look in that way, look inside rather than outside. And so then we can we have a foot up, a handle on the situation, and can make better decisions perhaps from that purchase point, from that overview, a greater perspective. So this would be hopefully what's occurring on the planet, as more and more people are waking up to their full potential and to who they are. And I notice there's quite a movement for what you could say the independent person, although it wouldn't be called that, but the independent human being, you could say. Meaning independent of the government institutions, independent of the financial institutions, and independent of in many other ways as well, just in their thought processes and in connections to some of the things that we take for granted in our society. There are people now, for example, that are giving up their driver's licenses and their identification and so on, and going for international ID and international driver's license, and different types of banking systems. They remove their identification with the governmental agencies and become a different type of identification through a corporate or trust systems and this kind of thing. So there's a lot of movement now toward alternate financial systems, alternate living accommodations, alternate transportation models, and so on. There's just this huge, I don't know, changeover that seems to be going on now on the planet, and it's really encouraging. It might be disruptive to a lot of industries and so on. Like, I wouldn't be investing in the diesel engine industry anytime in the next while. In fact, the Volkswagen executive who got charged in the U.S. just got sentenced, or no, he just got officially charged, and he's looking at 7 years in prison for the emissions scandal with the cheating on their emissions exams, basically, with Volkswagen in North America alone. Over $6 billion in fines, I believe it is. And there's only one or two executives, Volkswagen executives, who have been nailed in North America, only because they can't extradite them from Germany, apparently. They're having trouble charging them that way. But there's many more that'll be in line with that, and these people are going to prison for being so inconsiderate with the lives of humans, basically. And this is, you know, the way of the future. This won't be tolerated by corporations or other entities that consider themselves on the world scene. They're going to be off the world scene if they don't smarten up and pay attention to the change of times that are going on. So I find it really encouraging and just hilarious in a way that this is something I've been harping on for many, many years, several decades in fact, about the diesel exhaust and how horrible it is, and it should be, you know, done away with. And now we finally have cities of the world that are announcing they're doing away with not only the diesel but the internal combustion engines of all kinds, meaning gasoline, as well by 2040 in several cases, and even before that in some cases. So this is all, I think, very encouraging, and is an example of my wish is my command, basically. And I never thought it would start happening so quickly, but in the last months, I can actually see this avalanche of activity with the various groups behind it and so on, creating a huge change on the planet. And this is important, and I'll tell you why I think it's important. If you examine the phrase, breath is essence. Okay, breath is essence. When we breathe, that's the essence is receiving its energies that way, or it's involved in that process intimately. And if you consider also the idea that there's particulates and other disruptive entities that we breathe in every single breath that we breathe, whether we're at sea level next to the ocean, or whether at the tallest mountain in the world or the deepest valleys, they all have, there's no such thing as fresh air anymore left on the planet. Every single breath we take has contaminants in it. Maybe smaller amounts, maybe larger amounts, depending, but that's the way it is. The nanoparticles spread so rapidly through the atmosphere and all through the atmosphere that it cannot be avoided. That's just the way it is. So taking that into account, this idea of vehicles that are putting out 40 times the allowed limits, that's what, 4,000% over the legal limits in these contaminants that they're putting out. So people have been and are being just totally bombasted by the particles, and it changes people's ability to communicate with their essential self, is the way I look at it. So what these companies have been doing have been suppressing the manifestation of our essence, of our essential self. Now, if that isn't one of the highest orders of crimes in the world, I don't know what is. And I think this will eventually become the greatest crime known to mankind. You consider that the UN conservatively estimates at about 5 million people a year are killed by air pollution. 5 million, that's over, you know, something around 15,000 people a day. Hello, that's, you know, if it was that many people getting sick, they'd call it an epidemic. But instead, we don't even, it doesn't even come up in the news. When's the last time you heard, oh, 15,000 people died today from our vehicles putting out too much smog? And here we have every single automotive manufacturer is guilty of this same thing that the Volkswagen crew are guilty of. And now they're starting to name the other ones: Audi, Mercedes. Mercedes has to recall something like 1 million vehicles, and you know, Volkswagen has had to have billions of dollars in fines. And it's all this is just the tip of the iceberg, just the very tip. None of the healthcare costs have even entered into the massive fines and class action lawsuits and so on that are going on at this point. Once that enters in, you're talking about multiple tens of trillions of dollars that these automotive manufacturers are responsible for directly for the healthcare costs of humans and the deaths involved. So they're scrambling. This is hitting the whole automotive sector very hard. The automotive sector is scrambling right now. They're now phasing out all of their internal combustion engines. Volvo has just announced they're going to full electric and hybrid, no regular gasoline engines in 2 years. And other manufacturers will be following very rapidly. Even Volkswagen, they have a new electric Volkswagen and electric Volkswagen van that will be no doubt hot sellers, and they are rapidly bringing them into production because they know they've really blown it with their regular automobiles. So we're in for some really big changes. It's good news because the city's air will start to be cleaned up very, very rapidly once these fire-breathing dragon vehicles that we drive are exterminated from the streets. They should not be allowed in cities to start with. They should not be allowed anywhere shortly after that. And that will make a huge change. It will make the cities actually enjoyable. People will notice a change in their mood, a change in their health, a change in their vitality. And it will be like lifting a cap off of lifting a weight off of entire cities, and they will become more productive. People will be much happier. They'll be able to get along with each other better. They will have way better health and better longevity and enjoy their later years instead of being in hospital or being incapacitated like most people when they get older now, and so on. It'll be huge, huge changes. And when you combine that with the introduction of the things like the GANS vapor, the GANS plasma vapor, spray CO2 and zinc oxide GANs in cities to rejuvenate the air and help clean up the air and make it beneficial for people when they breathe it, and this kind of thing. Our vehicles should be not only just cleaning the air as they go through and drive, which some of the new cars actually clean the air as they go, when you think about it. The new electric Tesla car with its high filtration system, cabin filtration, actually blows cleaner air going behind it than it takes in front of it. So it's cleaning the air as it goes. And we can deliberately incorporate vehicles that are known to clean the air as they go. Imagine driving behind a vehicle and you smell it. Wow, that smells really good. I wonder what flavor they're using today for their cleanup smell. It smells like lavender essence. Oh, that's really nice. Instead of the smells we smell behind vehicles, which is somewhere between ugly and gross, basically. Outrageous and gross, let's say. So, anyway, I don't mean to rant and rave about that, but I certainly like to every once in a while. Alright, let's carry on here. It's getting on. Maybe we should wrap things up soon, but anybody else have some things they would like to bring up or show and tell?
I'd like to bring up tritium. And why I say I want to bring up tritium is let's bring it up in ourselves. Because as you went and portrayed what was and currently is, and then you move to what will be, the energies changed beautifully. And here we have a group of people that understand that we all have these ganses within us. And from hydrogen come deuterium and tritium. And as far as I understood, tritium is the balancer, correct? So if we balance a big ball of plasma tritium GANs from within ourselves and send it out to the universe now as a beacon of exponential growth of our understanding and immediate change going through all corporations and throughout our planet to improve everything. Now, forward, can we do that for a minute?
I think so. I think that's appropriate. Sure.
Deuterium is the one that's the balanced one. Okay, so maybe I need to get deuterium, but
Yeah,
hydrogen.
that's the way I
How about
understand
we
it.
just
It's
hold a
deuterium.
ball of hydrogen? Because from hydrogen comes it all. And get creation to take what's needed, because we're just holding it out as a big, beautiful ball of pure hydrogen. How about that?
How about if we just say, Mark from Detroit is present. I am present.
I love you.
Well, I think that is the big ball of hydrogen that we're going for, is that ability to be simply present, which is not so simple and not always present. But if we can be simply present, that, if you look at it as the true essence of the word presence, which actually is the presence of the absolute, and if we can be that presence, then we're truly present. But even working toward just being present and hello, I'm here, is a big step forward for many of us humans.
Sure
So,
is.
do you want a moment of silence? Is that what your idea was, Libby?
Well, you know, the power of silence, when people sit together and hold a huge imaginary hydrogen ball in their hands and offering it to humanity, since hydrogen is our number one, right? So we go with that. You got a timer? Oh, there, yeah. All right, and make it visual.
This is hydrogen. It's dihydrogen oxide, actually.
Woo.
Think
That
about
works.
it. H2O.
And then taking that magical breath and hold the ball. Send it to all of this planet and everywhere. According to my clock, it was 5:55, which was a nice time to start. Thank you. Oh, thank you, Rick. Thank you, everybody.
Last person standing holds the light.
Well.
as I was saying before I was cut off by my own microphone, may this GANs reach out to your GANs and be connected throughout the universe. It's all water, it's all hydrogen. It's all connected. And let's not forget, we're mostly water.
And when we go float on the water and put our hands in the lakes and the rivers and the oceans, we send our GANs to everybody. It continues and continues. It's so beautiful. Thank you.
Okay, there's a comment in the live stream, regaining sovereignty through self-sufficiency. That's a good saying. And the Space Stream has a question about going to Africa by December to help Mr. Keshe and team. I don't have a clue what you're talking about there. You'll have to work that out with the Keshe Foundation, I guess. Not sure what that's about. Okay, well, let's end things for today. I think we've had a good run here. And as always, thanks to everybody for attending to being present and being present at attending and showing your stuff. And thank you for not being afraid to be here and to experience new things and maybe some even new emotions and new devices. The physicality things we see sometimes are quite challenging, and all of it is just great as far as I'm concerned. If anybody has any issues with it, well, too bad. We're not here to deal with those kind of issues. We're here to be thankful for and give gratitude to all the wonderful manifestations that come to us in this group here. So thanks to everyone. And yes, big thanks to Shandor for the sticky tape today. And you'll have to see the rest of the show to understand that if you came in late. Alrighty, any last comment? I'm going to shut down the live stream here.
I love we. Thank you, Rick. Thank you.
Great, Libby. Thank you very much for being here for several years now, actually. Comes right down to it. Maybe several lifetimes, I'm not sure.
Yeah. I think we've been in this spiral together, all of us. It's just an ever-increasing spiral.
Well, that's a good point, actually, that we could talk about sometime, that maybe there's a certain group that people will end up being with when they're manifest on this planet, and it's always basically the same group. Think about it. That's why some people seem familiar. That's why it says. That's why some people seem familiar. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you very much. Thank you, Libby, for stopping in again. We missed your voice for a long time, and we know you had some places issues where you couldn't live and didn't live, but we're glad that you're back. Alper, thank you for all your intelligence. Thank you, everybody. Thank you from the bottom of my heart to the bottom of your heart. May we all feel each other. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. All right, enough thank yous, and I'm going to end the live stream now. Thank you, everyone.